The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your Commander-in-Chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Wow. How we feeling? Day one. Not quite in the books yet. You know, more things could be happening behind the scenes as we speak right now, but how we feeling so far? Made 4 moves today. I told you this would be fast and furious. I told you I expected them to come out of the gates, guns a-blazing. I expected a lot of moves. 4 in the first day, 4 in the first 7 hours or so of the tampering period of day one. I'd say that's pretty busy. You add in the Zach Ertz move, 5 moves done already to help reshape and revamp this roster. I'd say this is a really good start. You feel really good about everything that's been done thus far. I saw a lot of the, oh no, we're turning into the Washington Cowboys comments as, you know, free agency, the tampering period first got underway. And I could understand some of the angst there, especially as you started to hear Jordan, the corner, Jordan Lewis, as you started to hear his name kind of bandied about, like, oh, Lord, are we really going to do this again? And so, and he still may end up being a Commander. We're not out of the woods yet. I'm not a massive fan of his and adding him necessarily to the mix, but I am fully aware that he is a corner. We do need corner. He can play the nickel. We do need a nickel. So I'm not sure if they're still, you know, trying to figure out a way to get that done. But I can tell you this much. Based off of the needs that we went into free agency with and how they attacked it and how aggressive they were, I said that I'd say that they did a pretty good job of addressing several needs. You're not going to fix everything all at once. And the good thing is there's still more needs to be met. There's still more moves that they can make and will make. And those markets still have been largely untapped. The cornerback position, largely untouched. The safety position, largely untouched. If they're going to do anything at safety, again, they could go in the draft. We don't have to do anything at safety in free agency. Understand that. We can spend a draft pick. We only need one safety. So they can go about it the free agent route. They can go about it the draft route. So I'm not going to be upset whether they, you know, pull the trigger on a safety or not. But I think it'd be with all these safeties available, it'd be one less need heading into the draft. I'm all about trying to minimize the amount of needs necessary in the draft. There could be wants, but I want to minimize the amount of needs. When you have to have something, when the needs are so great, sometimes that trumps being able to take the best player available, or it at least enters your mind, your thought process, and that could dissuade you from making the right decision. Instead, you might opt to do what you think is the decision that is best for the team at the time because of the position and the need at that position. So I think you can still address safety. Obviously, tackle is one that I think they still should be mulling over. Whether they do anything or not, we will see. I've been pretty adamant that there's no guarantee that anything gets done at guard. They did something at center, which I didn't know if they were going to do or not. I didn't think they would. I won't say I didn't think they would. I wouldn't have been as aggressive as they were, but it's easier to say that what I would have done, but they were coming from Dallas. They have a working knowledge of what Tyler Biadasz brings to the table. So they went that route, but corner, safety, and tackle still remain as needs that they have not addressed yet, that I still think they have an opportunity to address. And they don't even have to be done at linebacker if they don't want to be. If they're done at linebacker, I'm fine with the moves that have been made. Let me set the table, though. I just come in rambling. I'm excited. For those of you who just got off work and you have no idea, right? You haven't checked your phone, yada, yada, yada. Let me get you up to speed on what's been done. So the Washington Commanders have signed 4 players today, or nothing's let me backtrack a bit. Nothing is finalized yet. The Commanders have 4 deals in place. Okay, agreed to terms with 4 players, and the likelihood is that these 4 players will become Commanders on Wednesday at the start of the new league year at 4 p.m. Eastern time, at which these contracts will be officially signed, and then we'll have the press conferences, etc. But for the time being, we're just going to assume that these are going to go through and there will be no issues. And so the first signing that they made today out of the gate was that of former Dallas Cowboy edge rusher Dorance Armstrong. I think most of us saw that one coming. That was an easy layup. If you've been paying attention, a lot of people are like, oh, you predicted that, Louie T. Nah, I mean, that was an easy one. Who didn't see that one coming, right? He had high-level production in Dallas. On that defensive line, he had a high win rate. He's a guy that they've coached. He's young. He's still got good football ahead of him. That was an easy one. At a position of dire need for us, that was a no-brainer. So I'm not going to take credit for, predicting that one. That was an easy one. Everyone should have gotten that one, okay? The next one was Tyler Biadasz. Washington signs another former Dallas Cowboy, this time at the center position. I had been adamant. I would have loved to have seen Ricky Stromberg get an opportunity. This signing doesn't mean Ricky Stromberg won't. What it probably means is that he isn't going to get an opportunity. But my guess is when you're paying a guy $30 million over 3 years, is that you're signing him to be your starting center. So I didn't really care how this ended up. I just wanted them to have a contingency plan in place, no matter what, whether Ricky Stromberg was going to get a chance to be the starting center or not. They just needed to make sure that there was a backup plan in place. And signing Biadasz makes Ricky Stromberg your contingency plan. He makes him your backup plan, which is fine by me. I got no issues with that, because a lot of people were really adamant that they did not want a rookie center starting with a rookie quarterback. And I get that too, right? You want a guy with some experience being able to take that young quarterback under his wing, set protections, kind of get that young quarterback comfortable under center. I get all of that. It would be even better if you can get a young quarterback to grow with a young center. That's even better, but whatever. I'm not tripping. Glad to have some good, sturdy competition and play at the center position. Biadasz is an above average center in this league. And I'd liken him a lot to Chase Roulier. Not a guy that's going to knock your socks off, but he's going to do his job and do it adequately, and you're going to feel good. And for the most part, you're going to feel comfortable with him at center, okay? Then the next move that was made was one that really got the fan base excited, especially if you've been watching my videos. I probably influenced you a little bit on this one, whether I did or I didn't, and you were all over Frankie Luvu from the jump. I was ecstatic. I told you I would be really happy with any of the 4 guys that I was sniffing around at the start of free agency. But I told you Luvu in particular was the guy that I thought would be the best fit here in Washington. And so let's talk about this Washington signing Frankie Luvu. And let's talk about each of these deals. So the first deal for Dorance Armstrong, 3 years, $33 million, right? Can get up to as much as $45 million with incentives, but the base layout of it is 3 years, $33 million. So $11 million per year. That's a good number for a guy like Dorance Armstrong who's looking for a payday. The Tyler Biadasz deal, 3 years, $30 million. Okay, so same neighborhood, same ballpark, locking up a former Cowboy center, bringing him here with hopefully a lot of good football left in front of him. And then you get to the Frankie Luvu deal, 3 years. You see the theme here, right? 3 years, $36 million. So $12 million per. That's actually really good money for the linebacker position. We saw guys last year signing for, now obviously with the cap going up and XYZ, the money's going to go up. But we saw guys like David Long Jr., who I really, really was high on last year. Saw guys like him sign 2-year, $11 million deals. So to see a guy getting $12 million a year is huge. However, if there's a guy that I believe deserves it, it's Frankie Luvu because of what they're going to ask him to do in this defense. So now this is one that I predicted. This is one that I'm excited about. And this was the guy I wanted the most at the linebacker position. Him and probably Devin White were 1A, 1B for me. And I'm more so locked in on Luvu because there are no questions about this man's effort. There are no questions about, are you getting 110% on every single snap from Frankie Luvu? He empties the tank every time he's out on the football field. He damn near empties the tank on every single snap. One of the plays you may have seen Frankie Luvu on last year, the one he was probably most famously known for, was a play in which he got his draws absolutely snatched off of his frame by Bijan Robinson. Just stopped on a dime. Frankie Luvu couldn't slam on the brakes. If it was one hand touch, he wouldn't have gotten Bijan Robinson down. It was such a nasty move, but he was hustling. He was busting his ass over there. You can't be mad at a guy getting juked out of his shoes when he's running 150 miles an hour trying to get to the football. And that guy has the ability to slam on brakes, and you just can't at 150 miles an hour. You just can't. But the reason I thought Frankie Luvu would be such a great fit here, and I said this when I was, kind of going through the targets for the team and things that I think they should do, things that I would do, et cetera, is Quinn made it abundantly clear. And I told you, you got to listen when these coaches talk, right? When people talk, they're telling you what it is they're looking for. And Dan Quinn said, I want linebackers that can rush the quarterback. I want that versatility. I want guys that can do multiple things, but I also want my guys to be able to get after the QB. Frankie Luvu, as I've been pointing out to you over the last 2 years in particular, has gotten to the quarterback. This is a guy that last season had 7 sacks, and this past season had 5.5 sacks. So you're talking about over 12 sacks the last 2 seasons combined, and this guy's a tackling machine. He gets to the football. He plays with a level of reckless abandon that I'm telling you, if you've never watched Frankie Luvu play before, go turn on some Frankie Luvu. There are plenty of opportunities on YouTube right now for you to go search Frankie Luvu. Somebody's put together a little montage of his plays throughout the course of this or last season in Carolina. Go watch Frankie Luvu. Watch how fast he plays. Watch how physical he is. Watch the level of reckless abandon he plays with and tell me that you don't absolutely love what you've seen and can't wait to watch him donning the burgundy and gold. Like, this is one guy that I don't worry about. This is one guy that I do not worry about. I am absolutely stoked for him here in Washington and what he potentially could be in this defense. I mean, I thought he was unlocked in the defense that he just came from, playing under Ejiro Evero. But hell, the year before, I don't remember who was there the year before that, but he had 7. Oh, yeah, the 49ers defensive coordinator was there, Steve Wilks. So Wilks got the most out of him. Ejiro Evero came along, got the most out of him. What that tells you, when you see a guy excelling in multiple schemes, 2 different, vastly different coordinators come along who see the game differently, still see value in a guy like Frankie Luvu and utilize him to his maximum abilities, you got to love it. I think he's going to come in and do the same thing he did in those 2 systems here in Washington. And this will be one of the better free agent signings we've had in a while. I truly believe that. I stand by that. So I love it. Love this signing of Frankie Luvu. 3 years, $36 million for Frankie Luvu. Welcome to the burgundy and gold. And then finally, Washington made one last splash signing. at the running back position. So Josina Anderson earlier in the day, and I dismiss anything Josina has to say these days because she's been wrong more than she's been right. Like last year, she had us sniffing around Kareem Hunt. That I didn't believe it then, and it never came to fruition. And so there's been countless other times where she's had us pegged doing this or that. But she said that we were talking to Austin Ekeler, and the same thing happened with Zach Ertz. We were talking to Zach Ertz, and then next thing you know, he was a member of the Washington Commanders. Same thing happened with Austin Ekeler. The ex-Los Angeles Charger signs a 2-year, $11 million deal, essentially, to come in here and be a really good change of pace with Brian Robinson Jr. I think their two games kind of play off each other well. Again, I was looking for more of a speed element, but I love what he brings to the table, he being Austin Ekeler, from a pass-catching standpoint. He's one of the best pass-catching running backs in the league right now. I love his nose for the end zone. I love his low center of gravity. He's a tough guy to get down on the ground. He's one of those dudes that is the best friend of a young quarterback. He's going to make himself visible. He's going to catch the football. He's going to make guys miss. He's going to run through arm tackles. His contact balance is, one of the best in the NFL. You've really got to, wrap him up to get him on the ground. If you think you're going to throw a shoulder into Austin Ekeler, or you think you're going to, run him over, he's just going to bounce off of you and keep on going. So he's a super strong guy. And unlike in LA with the Chargers, where they asked a lot of Austin Ekeler, really pushed him to his max. And I thought that's what really got him banged up last year, is that he really was the only back that they trusted on that team. And so he was getting the tackle, the carries, he was catching the football. And obviously he was upset at not getting his money last year with the Chargers. And so he sustained a little injury. And did he milk it? Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I don't know if he did or not. I don't care. I know this guy's been extremely durable. I know this guy's been extremely productive. And I know this guy has a skill set that's going to fit what Cliff Kingsbury and this offense is all about. So another really good signing on 2-year, $11 million deal. Not going to cost you a whole heck of a lot, but also going to put you in a position where you're going to have a guy that has a nose for the end zone, a guy that's going to catch the football out of the backfield, a guy that can move the chains, a guy that can find the end zone once he gets into the red zone. And I think he's going to be a welcome addition to that offense. And does this preclude you from doing anything else in the draft at the running back position? No, I don't think so, because they didn't draft Chris Rodriguez. They may like him, they may not like him. They may be a team that wants to carry 4 backs, not 3. And if that's the case, you can still go get another one. Rodriguez can be that 3rd back or that 4th back and play some special teams, right? So we'll see. My guess is they're done with running back. And if they are, I'm fine with that. But I really like this signing too. And shout out to my guy, JP, John Perez, who was, barking about this move last year when Austin Ekeler sounded off and requested a trade and the Chargers gave him permission. JP wanted him then. He wanted him last year. And I was like, nah, JP, I don't see it happening. And then even when he was available this year, I was like, nah, JP, I still don't see it happening. And JP was never lost hope, always was looking for Ekeler to be a Commander. And here he is with the Commanders, is Austin Ekeler. So that's a big get for them as well. And I don't know if you realize it or not, but normally in free agency, money talks and everything else walks. But I don't know if you can kind of feel the difference. Some of these guys probably wouldn't have wanted to come here. I know Zach Ertz wouldn't have wanted to come here a year ago this time, right? Frankie Luvu was trying to get paid. It really didn't matter who it was. He was going where the money was, right? We just happened to probably be the highest bidder in the Frankie Luvu sweepstakes, which is fine by me. I wanted him on this team very badly. So I'm glad they were able to outbid, because Carolina wanted him back. And Carolina made an offer to him, and our offer was just better than theirs. They didn't have the capital that we had. This is why it's important that you have the kind of money that we had. We could go a little bit higher than they could, right? They spent $100 million on a guard today. They didn't have a lot of money left over for Frankie Luvu. So we were able to take advantage of that. And I'm glad to have him on board, along with Austin Ekeler, Tyler Biadasz, and Dorance Armstrong. So those are all new members of the Commanders in conjunction with Zach Ertz, who signed last week. You got 5 new members of this team. They are far from done. I expect more moves to be made here in the very near future. I wouldn't be shocked if you hear something else, even if it's not definite, but, oh, the Commanders are talking to this player or they're close with this guy tonight, right? Going into tomorrow, and then you wake up tomorrow and that deal's done. They're going to be more. I'd venture to say 2 or 3 more deals get done tomorrow. I expect them to be aggressive. I told you I thought it would be fast and furious. And day one, 4 guys have been signed, 5 total. And I think that number is going to jump to 7 or 8 by tomorrow's, tampering period day. And then as you hit the start of the new league year, I could see Washington being up to, somewhere in that 8 to 10 range of players that they've added to the roster. That's to be expected. That's what we thought would happen, or at least I thought. I can't speak for you. I thought we would be this aggressive. When you've got as many holes as we have, and you have the turnover in roster, this is what it looks like. Now what I am expecting more of as time progresses and free agency plays itself out, and we get into that second week and the dust settles and the smoke clears, is some more 1-year deals, right? 1-2-year deals, things of that nature. I see some of those happening next week. But right now, like I said, these are the items that you got to get now while supplies last. You can't wait on these items. I'm still waiting to see what happens with the safety market. I'm still waiting to see what happens with the tackle market. And I'm still waiting to see what happens at the corner market to see if Washington is interested in those positions still. I think they are. And I think 2 out of those 3 positions probably still get addressed via free agency. So we'll see what happens. I'll try and keep my phone available. Yeah. Hold on a second. All right. So, I'm going to keep my phone open so that if anything on Twitter is happening, we don't miss it. I saw Ravens re-signing linebacker, and I thought it was going to be, and then I saw it was Harrison, not Patrick Queen. So Queen is still out there. Former Vikings linebacker Jordan Hicks is signing a 2-year, $8 million deal with the Browns. 49ers are signing edge rusher Yetur Gross-Matos to a 2-year deal worth $18 million. So clearly they wanted nothing to do with Chase Young. They've signed 2 edge rushers and haven't even blinked at Chase Young. So he's all but done in San Francisco. Obviously, you've seen the deal that the Seahawks completed with Leonard Williams, which that made a ton of sense. When you trade for a guy in season, it's very rare that you don't re-sign that guy. You're not going to trade away assets for a player and then not re-sign him at the end of that season, unless he just, like Chase Young, in the case of Chase Young, unless he just wasn't productive for you. Let's see. So the Seahawks linebacker Jordan Brooks signed a deal with the Miami Dolphins. So he's another linebacker off the board that would have made some sense had Washington wanted to dip their toe back into that pool again. I don't see them necessarily going back in there. So now, before we get started on our guys, I know you've been keeping tabs on what's going on with the other teams in the division. So the Giants obviously traded for Brian Burns. We'll talk more about that on the LouieTeeNetwork podcast tomorrow, but I do want to make mention of that. That is a massive move. that's big time. A second round and a fifth round selection given up. Now, some people think, oh my God, that's all it took. That's a lot, right? A second and a fifth is a lot to part ways with. And the reason they didn't have to give up more than that is because they got to pay him. And you saw the deal that they had to come up off of. 5 years, $150 million. I mean, you're talking $30 million a year. That's a lot for a guy who hasn't shown you the consistency that you would like to see when you're coughing up that kind of bread. If I'm spending that kind of money, I need 2 double-digit sack seasons. They need to be consecutive in a row, consecutively. And one of them needs to be 14 and a half, 15, 16 sacks. The highest sack season, if I'm not mistaken, he's got under his belt is a 12 and a half, which is a good number, but it wasn't consecutive. He's dealt with injuries. You've seen flashes, but he's never really put it all together, but it's there, and that's what's so enticing about him. But we've had guys here that have had double-digit sack seasons, Kerrigan, Arakpo. You can get, hell, Deron Payne just had an 11 and a half sack season. You can get to 11 and a half, 12 and a half, and have a really good season and not be great, right? We've seen guys do that all the time. He's going to have to put it together, but that's a hell of a talent that they got. And they're putting together one hell of a defense over there. You got to admit, with Bobby Okereke doing what he did last year, Thibodeau, who I'm not as afraid of now that Charles Leno is gone, because he made Leno his bitch. And so that was really problematic for us. But outside of, him beating up on Charles Leno, Thibodeau really isn't an issue, but he can be, right? And now you add in a guy like Brian Burns on the opposite side, and they still have the other big man in the middle. They got some stuff over there defensively. So they do lose Xavier McKinney, so that's good, but they can always go in the draft and try to replace him, or in free agency. A lot of safeties available, right? So the hope is they don't figure it out at quarterback. That's all you can hope for, is like, okay, they continue to twiddle their thumbs trying to figure out the quarterback position, and in not figuring that out, the defense might be good, but the offense isn't worth a damn. But that's the hope. And then obviously the Eagles continue to be the Eagles, signing Saquon Barkley, signing Bryce Huff, who was, for some of you a target here. He really wasn't a target for me because I don't trust a guy that can't stop the run. So if you looked at my list of edge rushers, he wasn't on my list. I left him off intentionally because I don't trust a guy that can't get to the quarterback, that can't stop the run, right? They can do that. The Eagles can afford to do that because they got Nolan Smith. They have put both Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat on the trading block. So I don't know if either one of them will be there at the start of next season. However, if either one of them are there, you couple that guy with Nolan Smith, who they drafted last year in the first round, and you still have some guys that can play first and second down. And if you want to take them off the field and put Bryce Huff on the field, on a second or a third down, you can do that, right? Because they have enough depth. We would have been starting Bryce Huff at defensive end on first, second, and third down. And that could have been catastrophic with the way he's defended the run throughout his career. So good for them. The Eagles also signed a linebacker to a one-year deal, former Wisconsin linebacker by way of New Orleans. I can't remember his name, but it's not a big needle mover. They don't really believe in the cornerback or the linebacker position, but obviously there's the Saquon Barkley move. That was huge for them. And that's an upgrade over what they had last year. Even though I thought Swift was a really good player for them, this is a massive upgrade getting Saquon. If he's healthy, he's a problem. I was hoping to get his ass out of the division for good, once and for all. And similar to Shady McCoy, when he finally got his ass up out of Philly and went to Kansas City, or Buffalo rather, I was elated. Get his ass out of here, right? I was thinking we were about to do the same thing to Saquon, and all he does is change uniforms but stays right in the division as a member of the family. So kind of pissed off there, but what can you do, right? So the Eagles continue to be the Eagles, right? making moves, doing what they do best, continuing to restock and reload and be one of the more talented teams in the NFL. We'll see what ultimately happens with the rest of their free agency period. And then Dallas has really been radio silent, as you would expect when you spend how Dallas spends lavishly, a lot of times on their own guys. But sometimes they go out here in free agency. Brandon Cooks, they traded for him. Stephon Gilmore paid him some money. Obviously, when they do some of those things, and you got to pay Dak, and then you got to save your money because they know that CD's going to get a deal here shortly. You got to pay Michael Parsons here shortly, so they can't do but so much. They had to let Tony Pollard walk. So they're going to get in here at some point. They're going to get into the fray at some point, but they've been pretty quiet. I've seen a lot of frustration from Cowboys fans. Like, this is not the time of the year to get super frustrated, especially when you knew you were coming into the free agency period broke. You don't have any money. I mean, what did you expect? You didn't have any bread. You want to hold on to the little bit that you do have just to see what happens and, give yourself some flexibility in case somebody shakes free or something does happen or an opportunity does present itself. You don't want to be flat broke. So they haven't done anything, but that was to be expected, right? So anyway, I digress. I personally, I'll just give you my thoughts on the start to free agency during this tampering period for Washington. I think it's a tremendous start. To come out of the gates, swinging the way that they did, attacking edge rusher, which we knew you needed two of them, whether it was a combination of free agency or the draft, or just free agency or just the draft. You needed two, regardless of what you were going to do, to knock down one right away. Good. Kind of figured it would be Dorance, Armstrong, and then a guy in the draft. But, we'll see. Still a lot of time left in free agency. They could go into the defensive end, pool one more time and pull another guy out. Who's to say? Right. Same thing with linebacker. They don't have to be done if they don't want to be. But they addressed that, right? They took care of center. I didn't see it as a need that they had to address, but I appreciate their diligence there, right? Don't leave it to chance with a guy who, doesn't have any starts at the center position in his NFL career. Don't leave it to chance, right? So I appreciate them making sure they solidify one of the most important spots on the offensive line. Center is very important, especially for a young quarterback, which you assume is going to be the case, and they're going to spend the number 2 overall pick on a QB. So that's important. So they go out and get Tyler Biadasz. Great move. And my favorite move to this point is Frankie Luvu. I'm telling you guys are going to love him. I told you the same thing about J.D. McKissick when we signed him back in 2020. I said, I'm telling you guys are going to love him. And you ended up loving J.D. McKissick. I'm telling you, you're going to love Frankie Luvu. His play style is infectious. The thing I love about the way he plays, it's hard to watch a guy play that hard and not be out here busting your ass trying to give it your all to get to the football. You can't watch a guy do what he does and then turn around and half-ass it. You can't do it. There's no doubt in my mind, if he is one of those, leadership type guys, vocal, he'll have a C on his chest very quickly here in Washington. That's my guess. We'll see. And then obviously Austin Ekeler comes in. And I'm hoping that he's able to kind of have a bounce back year. Last year wasn't a great year for him. Dealt with some injuries. Obviously, the distraction of the contract and not getting the trade and all of that stuff kind of loomed large in his season and the way it turned out. And he got a clean start, got an opportunity. Now let's see Austin Ekeler go out and perform. I'm hoping to see the Ekeler that we saw 2 years ago, 3 years ago, the guy that was a fantasy football dynamo, and less of the guy that we saw last year who was not as effective for the Los Angeles Chargers. So really excited about day one. I thought they did a phenomenal job adding to this roster and this core, but they're far from done, right? Lots of work still to be done, and I look forward to them doing exactly that. So let's get to the comment section, see what you guys have to say. We start with Deshaun Creech. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Deshaun writes, feels so good. Feels good to finally have a front office. It feels good to have responsible adults in the building. No bickering, no backstabbing, no ulterior motives or agendas. Everybody's on the same page. Everybody's working together for one common goal. There's a synergy in the building. There's a vision. Everyone's buzzword time aligned. It feels good to have an aligned vision in the front office. Everybody on one accord, and you go out and you execute. You're not always going to get your guy, but I'd say this is a hell of a start for new GM Adam Peters, head coach Dan Quinn, offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury, and defensive coordinator Joe Witt Jr. I say this is a hell of a start for them. Lance Newmark, don't want to forget him as well. He'll be a huge part of this process as we continue to try to stockpile talent, build this roster, and give us a chance to compete come September. Right? Right out of the gates, we're trying to compete and be a different team. This is what we were promised in year one. We weren't promised that we were going to win big. We were promised that we would compete at a high level and we would look like a formidable team. And teams that came in here, teams that played against us are going to know they played against the Commanders. The moves that have been made today are in line with that way of thinking. I know Frankie Luvu is going to play hard every single snap. I know that. I know Tyler Biadasz is going to give me everything he's got. I've watched him play. Same for Dorance Armstrong. So you feel good about the moves that have been made. We know what Austin Ekeler brings to the table. So this is good. Feels good to have a front office, to have competency where it matters most. John Perez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy JP writes, Lou, JP, good to see you as always. Likewise. Ekeler to Washington on basically a bargain is probably my favorite move of all. I also think Tyron Smith is still possible. Anything's possible. I told you, anybody that comes from Dallas, because of the relationship that Dan Quinn has established with so many of these players and how people view him, as we've been told numerous times, we've never heard a bad thing uttered about Dan Quinn. It's all positivity, people buying in to Dan Quinn. And Tyron Smith may not be any different, but again, I think the biggest difference with Tyron Smith is where he's at his point of his career and what he's trying to do and accomplish. He's probably at the point of his career where he's chasing a chip. And if he's chasing a chip, you're not going to get it here in the next year or two. So it's hard for me to see him signing up for what it is we're going through and what we're about to embark upon. But no, I gave you a shout out at the top of the show, JP, because you've been all over Ekeler since last year when he wanted out of LA with the Chargers. You wanted him then. You wanted him this offseason. I didn't think it was going to happen. I knew it wasn't going to happen last year. I didn't think it was going to happen this year. You stayed steadfast in your belief that Austin Ekeler would be a good target here, and you were vindicated. So Austin Ekeler's on board, and I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't excited to see how that tandem works here in Washington. I still would like a little bit more speed. I'm not coming off of that, but it is what it is. Okay, it is what it is. And definitely got him for what feels like a bargain, Deshaun Creech, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. He writes, whether we bring back Cam or Kendall, we'd be remiss not to get a veteran back in the secondary. Great moves so far, so I have even more faith. I think with as many young guys as we have on that back end, assuming that Emmanuel Forbes will be starting next year, and all of the safeties are, 3 years in or less, I think you'll have Defoe going into year 4, if I'm not mistaken. I think this will be year 4 for Defoe. So, but he's still a relatively young player. He wasn't really a starter his rookie season. Really kind of broke out in second year and then got hurt in year 3. So he's really still a young pup in terms of playing experience. And now it's a different scheme. So everything that he did know, you can kind of flush down the toilet. Obviously, you got Percival, who's going into year 3 for him, and then you've got Quan Martin, who's going into his 2nd season. So a lot of young guys, a lot of youth back there. You'd love to add a veteran who can kind of get these guys lined up, get them all on the same page, get them, where they need to be. So a safety that has a veteran presence that you could trust back there to get everybody aligned, I think would probably be a smart move. You get another young guy back there, and it's kind of the blind leading the blind, so to speak. So I actually expect, I think I'm like you, Deshaun. I actually expect a veteran. I'm a Jeremy Chin guy. That's who I've been banging the table for. If Cam Curl's brought back, that's cool by me and fine by me as well. I told you this market is going to really, I think, open up some eyes, and I think it will change the way some of these players were approaching free agency. So we'll see what happens. Video channel. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB video channel. Right. AP and DQ got to work. I'm starting to see an identity form with Luvu and Dorance. And Ertz and Ekeler provide great safety valves for the new quarterback. Yeah, I mean, you want to give your young quarterback as many comforting targets as possible. And they tell you all the time, the tight end is the quarterback's best friend, right? We saw what Dalton Schultz did for CJ Stroud last year, which is why they signed him back to a 3-year, $36 million deal. He was everything for him. Clearly, he had some success going down the field to other targets, but when all was said and done and he needed an out, when he needed to get rid of it, when he was in a tough bind, when it was 3rd and 4, the guy that he was looking for a lot of times was Dalton Schultz. And so that tight end is invaluable for a young quarterback. And Ertz is going to provide himself, we hope, as a great target for a young quarterback. Same with Ekeler, right? Going to know when to get out into the pass route, going to show him his numbers, going to be a reliable target he can throw it to. Nothing wrong with taking, 5 yards on 1st and 10 on a swing pass out of the flats to Austin Ekeler, and getting you into a comfortable 2nd and 5, or he gets 7 because he made a guy miss, and now it's 2nd and 3. Like that. That's a good feeling for a young back, right? Or a young quarterback, rather. So, yeah, you see the identity starting to be formed, right? And I'll take it a step further. You start to see that there's a different level of respect league-wide about what's being done here. And I think the signal has been sent out to the rest of the league. Like they shot off a rocket in the sky that says, hey, it's okay to go to Washington again. That feels really good too. That feels damn good. Who am I kidding? Rosario Satara Poleski. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, today feels like the first day of the season. Looking forward to the pro day and draft coverage. Yeah, today always feels great. It's funny when I talk to my boys, we always scream, Happy New Year, when the start of the new league year happens, because it feels like the beginning, right? It's a brand new day. Every team has hope right now, Every team is feeling good about what they're doing right now, or most teams do. Some teams are out there twiddling their thumbs and their fan base is pissed off, but your circumstances dictate what you are and aren't able to do this time of the year, and you don't win any games in March. Again, as a fan of this team, I don't have to inform you of that. If you've been a fan long enough, that we've gone through plenty of Marches where we felt great about what we just did, only to get to September, into October, season's already done, or into November, oh, you're making a run, into December, the season falls apart and you don't make the playoffs. So we've been here plenty of times. But again, this all feels different because it is different. Can't stress that enough. Dory Gunner, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Dory Gunner writes, hope all is well, Lou. Likewise, Dory Gunner. happy with the signing so far. Solid players that have reasonable contracts, nothing flashy, which I'm fine with. And I told you it wasn't going to be a lot of pizzazz to this free agency class. There weren't going to be these monstrous deals that we've seen handed out to players. The Giants making a massive splash going after Brian Burns. The Carolina Panthers handing out a 5-year, $100 million contract to guard Robert Hunt, who I knew was going to be paid big money. And I told you as much in my video that I uploaded yesterday. I knew he was going to get broken off. I just didn't see that kind of bread coming his way. But those kind of deals weren't going to be for the Commanders. We weren't going to be involved in those types of deals. But I told you I thought there would be some really good deals available for us. And here we are talking about 4 signings and, a couple of the guys we're super excited about. Maybe all of them you're super excited about. I like that they had a plan, similar to how I felt when the season was over and Josh Harris put together the advisory committee. And literally within days, we had ourselves a new general manager. They had a plan and they executed that plan to perfection. And clearly, when this tampering period got underway, they had a plan and they executed it beautifully to perfection. Now, there could have been 1 or 2 more guys they were targeting that may have gotten away from them. But for the most part, it feels like they went after a select few guys and they were able to get those guys and bring them into the fold. So feels really good. KP Flex, been a member for 25 months. Really great first day. Now it's time for the COG signings. Let's just make them good ones. Hashtag it feels good in my LT voice. Feels good. Yeah. Those COG signings aren't going to be till next week. I think there's still more signings like today, like more glue guy, more, above a jag signing type guys. Like there's still a safety, there's still a tackle, there's still a corner, there's still these types of signings that I think are still out there for the Commanders to make. So I don't think we've gotten to the point where we're looking for Oren Burks, right? I don't think we've gotten to that point yet where you're looking to add a kicker, a place kicker. Whether you bring back Joey Sly, you sign a kicker, like we haven't gotten to that point yet. I think we're still mulling through the guys that we think are going to be key contributors still, right? Metaphor, been a member for 30 months. Who writes, A+ to this staff so far. Luvu and Ek are fire. I love both of those signings. Luvu is my favorite thus far, not even close. Ekeler is probably a distant second. The Luvu signing was the one that I wanted the most out of the linebacker group, and he just fits Dan Quinn's DNA and personality as a coach, Joe Witt Jr., and everything that they've preached this offseason about fast and physical and arriving with bad intentions and violence and all of that good stuff. That they just described Frankie Luvu to a T. And again, the kicker for me and the reason why I knew he would be such a great fit here is because of his ability to get after the quarterback. Not only is he a tackling machine, not only does he play fast and furious and reckless and, all of the things that they like and that they preach, he can get after the quarterback. And that's an art form. Not everybody can do that, but he can do it very well. Mr. HTTR, been a member for 14 months. Really appreciate you. Writes, feels good. Not mad at anything yet. How can you be? Nothing they've done should induce any type of frustration. Everything that they've done has been within reason. It has been things that we needed. Nothing's come out of, right field. Everything's kind of going the way that it's supposed to go, which is strange because that's how the entire offseason has been. Sans for the whole head coaching search part where we thought we were getting Ben Johnson, and then that turned into a shit show. And then, we were the last team to hire a coach, et cetera, et cetera. But even that happened for a reason. And as you start to put pieces of that puzzle together, it was never Ben Johnson. It always felt like Dan Quinn. But what else are they supposed to say, right? Anyway, I digress. Mr. HTTR, thank you for your generosity, gifting 5 memberships. Really, truly do appreciate you. Mr. HTTR, thank you for blessing those in need of a LouieTeeNetwork membership. Thank you for your generosity, and welcome aboard to all the new members that have been gifted a membership via Mr. HTTR's generosity. Thank you once again. John Perez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy, JP. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. All right. Even though we got Luvu, I still wouldn't rule out Devin White or Bobby Wagner. Dan Quinn craves physical playmaking linebackers. I wouldn't rule them out either. I told you, we don't have to be done at linebacker. We may be done, but we don't have to be. And those 2 guys aren't going to break the bank either. I don't think. Maybe Devin White might get a little bit more than I'm thinking he might. But I keep thinking that his market is unique because he's got a unique set of skills, but you also have to consider his situation and why he's even available in the first place. And so, I don't know. He's still young enough to sign a 1-year deal if he's interested in that. See if he balls out and then go from there. But I wouldn't rule out another guy being added to the mix. I would not do that. Let me check socials just to make sure. Let's check socials and make sure nothing is going on. See if any new signings have happened. All right, Noah Fant went back to the Seahawks, which I thought we were out of the tight end market once we signed Zach Ertz. So, all right. I don't see anything noteworthy. Let me just check all of the noteworthy guys. I think everything's going to kind of settle down for the night. But you just never know. All right. Yeah, nothing new on Shefty's page. Let me check Ari out. Make sure he doesn't have anything. Okay, that's not working. All right. Let me check Ari and let me check Ian Rappaport real quick and make sure that there's nothing there on their pages as well. I know y'all will keep me informed anyway, so I really don't even have to do this because if something happens, y'all gonna let me know. But I know also it's some trolls out there who will try to get you, which I don't believe nothing this time of the year, no way, till I confirm it myself. Because a lot of y'all be on some crazy shit. Y'all know who y'all are. All right, let's see. Yeah, Ari doesn't have anything new on his page. And let me check on Ian Rappaport real quick. Yeah, nothing crazy here. All right, cool beans. Antoine Hoskins, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, would love to see Sam in this offense with these weapons. Who knows? And you may. He won't be the first choice if you do see him, but he may still be on this roster. Again, we don't know what the hell is going to become of the quarterback position. I still think that they're going to bring in a veteran. I don't think they're going to just leave Sam to mentor the young quarterback. Sam can't mentor anybody. He's trying to fight for his NFL life as a starter. So we'll see what happens. I still think they're going to bring in a veteran quarterback at some point. That, to me, makes the most sense. King of the Bluegrass, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. And if they bring in a veteran, what does that mean for Sam, right? Does that mean they try to move him? We don't know. We'll see. King of the Bluegrass, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, how many linebackers are going to be in the base defense, you think? It'll be interesting to see what his base front looks like. He could go back to a traditional 4-3. I think the league is kind of shifting more to that 4-2-5 look. But I think he has a lot of those same principles as Rivera in the sense of that third linebacker is that Buffalo nickel, right? That big safety / linebacker hybrid, which is why Jeremy Chin makes a ton of sense. I think this is why you don't need to sign another linebacker. I think they're going to roll with Jamin Davis and Frankie Luvu, and those are going to be your two backers. Now, you still need another guy. I feel like you need a third back that you can rely on, but you can draft that guy. You don't have to necessarily, sign somebody in free agency to be that third guy, right? Because if you sign a Devin White, he's expecting to play. He's not expecting to sit on the bench. If you sign a Bobby Wagner, he's playing. He's not, expecting to play. He's playing. So I'd rule those guys out. Like, we're looking for an Azeez Al-Shire type guy now, that third wheel, that guy that's the first off the bench in the event that something happens or you go to a different package that allows him to see the field at the same time as the other two linebackers. But you can find that guy in the draft. So I think they're pretty much done with free agency at the linebacker position, unless they're looking for, again, some core special teamers like Oren Burks or somebody like that. But I think they're done with the, high-profile linebackers. I think that's done. We'll see. I think their base defense is going to include two linebackers and a Buffalo nickel, I think. That's what I foresee. But again, I don't know what the defense is going to look like. They claim they don't even know what the defense is going to look like yet. They're still putting it together because they're going to build it based off of the talent that they have. K Cruz, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Lou, what can you tell me about Marshawn Nealon? I think his first name is not Marshawn. It's something else. Nealon. I think he is a defensive lineman or edge rusher. He's one of the two. I think he's a defensive tackle. He might be a defensive end. I don't know much about him. I just remember seeing him at the combine. He was impressive at the combine, but I don't know anything about his game. I can't tell you anything about his game. Twin D, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, do you think that Luvu might have a similar effect on Davis that Smith may have had on Queen in Baltimore? That and the way Davis will now be coached, there's a chance. Jamin Davis has talent, and we've seen it flash. The problem has always been it's been a flicker, right? But it's never sustained itself like a flame. It's always a flicker. So maybe Frankie Luvu being next to him can really give him a chance to be free. But even more importantly, it's going to be the coaching staff, putting guys in positions to make plays and be at their best. That's what's going to help Jamin Davis the most. The coaching and being put in positions to succeed. That's what's going to help him. Now that he's in a defense that is different than the one he's been in the last 3 years, he's going to have to think again. We saw thinking Jamin Davis, thinking Jamin and stinking Jamin. So we need him to play free, cluttered, free of clutter of the mind, and just going out running and hitting. Hopefully he'll be able to do that this year. Sad Giants fan. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Sad Giants fan writes, I think we go from 2 to 3 wins after the Brian Burns trade. Louie, do you think the Giants have the potential to go winless this season? #26, #sad. No, you're not going winless. Your defense is going to be really good. I'm so glad that you don't have Wink Martindale anymore, even though he clearly didn't get along with the head coach, Brian Daboll, and he was probably a little too aggressive for Brian Daboll. With these kind of savages out there that you got all that speed defensively, I would have hated to have seen him be able to turn these boys loose. I know who your defensive coordinator is right now, but we'll see how everything goes. Clearly, the Giants need a quarterback, and if I were them, I probably wouldn't be entertaining that at where you sit at the draft right now. A trade back, if possible, would allow you to maybe then draft a quarterback, but you got to be looking at receiver or a tackle. Probably receiver. At that pick, with that kind of talent available, you got to take the best player available. When you suck that bad, it's all about best player available, BPA. You're going to win more than 2 or 3 games. Trust me. You've been way worse from a talent perspective than what you're going to end up going into the season with this upcoming year. There's no way you're going to win 2 or 3 games. Christopher McLaughlin. Shit, we can't even beat you. We gotta find a way to beat you first. Shit, as of right now, you pencil us in for 2 dubs till we change it. Christopher McLaughlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, my guy, Chris. Thank you for your generosity as always. Really, truly appreciate you. Who writes, hey, Lou. What's up, Chris? Hope all is well with you and the family. Likewise. Hope you and the family are doing excellent. So glad to hear from you. He writes 4 questions. 1, what are your thoughts on getting Jordan Lewis as a slot cornerback? 2, 3, do you consider Ertz TE1 or do you see them drafting a tight end in the 3rd, 4th round? And then 4, who is the best team in the division? So until somebody knocks them off the throne, the team that won the division last year is the best team in the division, and that's Dallas. Now, on paper, the Eagles may be better than them, but that's on paper, right? Last year, the Cowboys won the division, and until they're no longer division champs, they're the division champs. So I'm going to give them the respect that they earned last year. I just love the fact that everybody in the division is going to be different, vastly different. The Eagles have a totally different staff. They've made a ton of changes. They lost their all-world center. They lost their leader on the defense in Fletcher Cox. So those are all impactful things that have taken place. We'll see if they've been able to steady the ship. There was some off-season turmoil, whether real or conjured up by the media. A.J. Brown, whether you like it or not, had his fair share to do with the drama that was existing in Philadelphia. And so they've got a lot of shit going on. But when it's all said and done, Dallas doesn't have Dan Quinn anymore. I think he was a huge part of their success. They don't go 12-5 3 years in a row without him. You take him and Joe Witt Jr. away, plus some of the pieces that they've lost via, free agency and some of the coaches that have been, ripped from their staff, including their defensive line coach, Aiden Durde, who's now the defensive coordinator in Seattle. And you total all that up, it's a big net loss for the Dallas Cowboys on that side of the football, and I think it's going to impact them, right? Then there's the Giants, and they've had some coaching overhauls as well. They've moved on from, some guys specifically on the offensive side of the football, or defensive side rather. They've moved on for some of the offensive coaches. Hell, we have one of them here in O-line Bobby Johnson, which was a running joke earlier in the offseason. It may turn into a running joke. We'll see how the offensive line fares under O-line Bobby Johnson, but They still need a quarterback. Nothing's changed there. And so we'll see, but it's still Dallas, Philadelphia. It's still the order that it was in last year. Dallas, Philadelphia, Giants, Washington. Until that changes, till we physically change that, that's what it is. And then you asked about Ertz being TE1. I think he is TE1. I think they're going into this season with Zach Ertz being TE1. Is there a chance that we still draft the tight end? Sure, there is. Like I said, don't rule anything out. But don't forget that we have 4 tight ends now. With Ertz's arrival, they can't help but be impressed with Amani Rodgers. Now they got to go back to 2022 because he didn't play in 2023. There's no way they walk away saying, nah, this kid can't help us. Cole Turner is interesting because, as my guy Derek B has said to me on numerous occasions, this is multiple staffs who have looked at Cole Turner and been like, nah, I'm good, and haven't really given him a shot. And it was 2 coordinators, right? For whatever reason, Scott Turner didn't give him a shot as a rookie. Okay, he was making the transition from receiver to tight end. A lot of growing pains, XYZ. Okay, yada yada yada. But I thought he showed enough in the preseason to get more snaps than what he ended up getting this year with Eric Bieniemy. But I don't even want to go down that road again. So you got Cole Turner, you got John Bates. So I don't really see them attacking tight end. It's one of those needs that I think by signing Ertz, you took that off the board as a need. Again, if a guy's sitting there that you had a 2nd round grade on and you're at the top of the 4th round, or you're sitting there with your compensatory pick you got from the Chase Young trade with San Francisco, your 2nd, 3rd, and you're sitting there, you're like, yo, we had an early 2nd round grade, late 1st, early 2nd round grade on this tight end, and he's still sitting here. Let's say it's today Sanders, right? And he's still sitting there. Jatavian Sanders. Maybe you take him, he's not going to be there at the end of the 3rd round, but hypothetically speaking. So who knows? I think we're done personally, but you just never know. And then your first question was thoughts on potentially getting Jordan Lewis. I'd prefer to go in a different direction. If you're going to go nickel, I'd rather you go Kenny Moore. But if they go Jordan Lewis, it's another guy that they're comfortable with, that they know what to expect out of him, and I'm okay with that. But I don't want to settle. I don't think Jordan Lewis is anything special. He, to me, is a jag. You can do better than Jordan Lewis. But, we'll see. We'll see what they decide to do. He also had a major injury, did Jordan Lewis, just a couple seasons ago. So I personally would just like to go in the draft. There's so many nickels in the draft. If you're going to spend money at the cornerback position, do it out wide. Go get us a boundary corner to play opposite of, Emmanuel Forbes Jr. That's what I think we need. Benjamin St. Juste should be break in case of an emergency only. He should be relegated to the bench. And I'd love to have him as a depth piece that you can bring into the game. When all else fails, you got an injury or, a team spreading you out and putting extra receiving, then you can bring in Benjamin St. Juste. But I prefer him to not be a guy that we have to call on to start. Life, no life. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB who writes, we might BPA nearly every pick going into the draft. It'd be nice to be able to go in with that kind of flexibility, but that's not going to be the case. After our number 2 overall pick, which will be BPA, because the quarterbacks are the best players in this year's draft. So it'll probably be somewhat BPA. I'd probably guess Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably higher on their board than whatever quarterback they're going to take. That'd be my guess. Caleb Williams is probably number 1 on their board. I'm guessing. I don't know this. I can't confirm nor deny this. But I'd guess that the quarterbacks are pretty high on their board. After the quarterback is taken and you get to your 2nd round picks, 36 and 40, I'm not sure if it's BPA at that point or not. I'd love it to be, but the fact of the matter is it may come down, and we need to tackle. Who are we kidding? Don't want to wait until the third round. Don't want to bullshit around. Now, waiting from 36 to 40, if there's 3 guys you like at the tackle position, you know you're going to end up with one of them if you don't take one, right? So you're not tripping about it then. But if it's only one guy that you like, you got to take him at 36. You can't wait because in between those 3 picks until your next pick, somebody might take him. So you got to take that tackle, even though he might not be the best player available on the board at that selection for you. You can't wait. Out of necessity, you got to grab him, right? So we'll see what happens. Chauncey Davis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Chauncey Davis, my guy, CD, OG, triple OG, writes, Lou, Chauncey, that Peyton Wilson draft pick looks good with the Luvu pickup today. 2 dogs. I'd love it. And again, Peyton Wilson kind of fits that Dan Quinn mold. Taller, rangier, fast, physical, arrives with violent intentions type of linebacker. Remember, Jamin Davis is on the last year of his deal because if I'm not mistaken, they did not pick up the 5th-year option. I would not have picked it up either. I don't know if that time is come and gone yet. I don't think they've made that decision, but I think the prevailing thought is that they're not going to pick that up. Let's see. Davis was drafted in 2021. So 1, 2, 3. You'd have to pick it up this year. So you'd know by next year if he was here or not. So they got to make a decision this year on him and the franchise tag. I can't see them picking up his 5th-year option. So if you're not going to pick it up, which I don't see it happening, you could be drafting his replacement in the draft. In Peyton Wilson or someone of that ilk, right? So we'll see. Tony P56, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Tony P56 writes, Lou, I loved Ekeler until we signed him. I think that move means we're out on a chance to draft Trey Benson from Florida State. Really wanted that guy. I don't think it rules us out of anything, but it makes it a lot less likely that you're going to take a back that high, right? And I'll take it a step further. It makes it a lot less likely that we're going to take a back at all in the draft. Now, it's not impossible. It could still happen that they take a back in the 5th or 6th round, 7th round. But the likelihood is they removed running back from the list of needs going into the draft, just like they removed tight end from the list of needs going into the draft. With one more selection at guard, you could remove the interior of the offensive line completely from consciousness heading into the draft. Now, some would argue you don't even need to do anything at guard if you don't want to. You still got Andrew Wiley, who you can kick inside. You still got Chris Paul. They still brought back Mason Brooks on a futures contract from last year, who was an undrafted rookie. So clearly this staff thinks highly enough of Mason Brooks to at least give him an invite to camp and OTAs and things of that nature to see what he's got. So what I'm trying to convey to you, and you still have Braden Daniels and you still have Ricky Stromberg, all of these different options you can play around with to see if these guys can play at guard or not, right? And see where everyone fits. So theoretically speaking, with the addition of Tyler Biadasz, you might not have to do anything. And that might have taken, guard off of the board altogether, along with tight end and now running back, essentially. So, we'll see, right? Your hopes of getting Trey Benson are pretty much gone. Yeah, I agree with that. Now, getting a back is not off the table, but getting a guy the quality of a Trey Benson, probably not going to happen now. Probably not going to happen. Jeremiah, been a member for 20 months. Really, truly do appreciate you. Who writes, love the moves. Feels good to see a real offseason. And here's the beauty of it, Jeremiah. We're just getting started. We've only just begun. Tony P56, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. For real, I like all of our free agents. We need Danielle Hunter. We don't need Danielle Hunter. You want Danielle Hunter. That's a lot of money Danielle Hunter is going to command. You saw what Brian Burns just got. Hunter probably won't get that, although he probably should, because his numbers are way more impressive than that of Brian Burns. The biggest difference is Burns like 25 years old. And that's why you get that kind of bread, that kind of talent, that kind of ability at that age. Yeah, I'm going to break you off. Danielle's 30, so people are going to frown upon him, but that dude knows how to get to the quarterback. And if he's healthy, he's a problem. The question is, who's going to ante up? That's why you haven't seen him sign a deal yet. He's in a kind of peculiar situation. He's coming off of a big year, but go look at his 2 years previous to last year. They were injury riddled, a lot of concerns. Matter of fact, let me go look at his stats. I think that's part of the reason why he hasn't gotten a deal yet, because it's kind of a hard situation to navigate. So really, he only had that one down year, which was 2021, where that was the year he got hurt. Last 2022, 10.5. Last year, 16.5. This past year, rather, 16.5. This is the kind of guy you pay $30 million per year to. So we got 6, 12.5, 7, 14.5, 14.5, 6, 10.5, 16.5. Man has 87.5 career sacks in his career. The problem is he's coming off of a career high 16.5 sacks last year, but he's 30 years old. So you're thinking to yourself, how many more of those years do I have? You know, if I sign him, how many of those is he going to deliver for me? I don't know, but you sign him and you find out. Somebody's going to sign him. Somebody's going to give him that bread. I just don't see it being us. Nervash, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, I'm a Panthers fan. Luvu is a great player. You'll love his energy and tenacity on D. A lot of Panthers fans more upset with him leaving versus Burns. Oh, I know. I thank you, Nervash, but you don't have to tell me. I watch all the teams in the league. I'm very familiar with his work, and I've been telling our fans that they're going to love him. This guy's energy is infectious. He plays the game the way that you love to watch somebody play it. His passion, his energy, his zest for the game, unmatched. I haven't seen guys play with that kind of passion too often. Like, he's a guy that you can tell he loves ball. He loves playing. He has fun, and he plays balls to the wall. And I know Panthers fans wanted him back. And I said this numerous times throughout the offseason leading up to the free agency period. I am shocked that the Panthers aren't doing everything in their power to bring him back, because it wasn't going to cost you a whole hell of a lot of money. But when you're spending, you know, the kind of money you spent on Robert Hunt, and I don't blame you, because you got to protect, about to call him Tua. You got to protect your investment. You spend the number 1 overall pick, you trade up, you give up the assets you gave up. You got to protect that investment. But Frankie Luvu was a guy that should have probably been back in Carolina. But I'm glad he's not back in Carolina. I'm glad he's going to be here. That's for sure. I appreciate you saying that. And I tell fans this all the time. If you really want to know how good a player was or how he's really truly viewed, just listen to how fans talk about him once he leaves. Just listen to how the fans talk about guys. They'll tell you all you need to know. I will say this. The Giants fans told us, man, you know, Nick Gates is a good guy, man. And he turned out to suck ass. So there's that too. But generally speaking, fans know. Like, Seahawks fans was like, yo, we'll pay you to take Cody Barton off our hands. Please. By all means. Twin D. Like, when the Jets fans saw the Eagles sign, I was looking at some of the comments, and it was like, hey, have fun with this dude. He can get to the quarterback, but don't put him on the field to stop the run. So they're telling you, right, what's going on. Twin D, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, totally random thought. With our apparent developing identity, speed, hitting, violence, and toughness, the Commanders name doesn't sound so bad, in my opinion. You're putting a lot of thought into that, Twin D. I don't think fans think about those things and those qualities when they think about the name. They just don't like the name. It doesn't have a great ring. There's no way to put a nice, cool nickname on it. There's other aspects of this name that fans just are never going to be able to get on board with. Excuse me. Look, whatever followed up Redskins was always going to be tough. It's like trying to follow the best act, and it's just hard to do. You know, everybody knew that next quarterback after John Elway, or that next quarterback after Dan Marino, or that next quarterback after Jim Kelly, you know, that next quarterback after Troy Aikman, guys who had been there forever, that next quarterback after Tom Brady, he better be a damn good one, because that's a tough act to follow, right? So that's kind of how this situation is. It was Redskins. It was always Redskins. And whatever name they chose wasn't going to be Redskins. Now that they've had a chance to decompress, kind of realize that that's not coming back, wrap their head around that, now they might be able to be level-headed, a little bit more level-headed with the next name, if there's a next name. The longer they push this off, though, just let you know, and Jason Wright already said, hey, stop talking about the name, because we're not changing that no time soon. We got other shit to worry about. The longer this thing stays Commander, the more likely it's going to be Commanders. And I don't think they're saying, you know what? All of a sudden, we're tough, we're physical, we play a violent brand of football. You know what? This name should stick. I don't think they're thinking about it like that, Twin D. I get where you're coming from. The people who don't like the name don't care about any of those qualities. They just don't like the name. Period. End of discussion. But, you know, all of those things that you just talked about and described, I guess in a way it does describe a commander. But again, nobody's thinking about it in those terms. Like you said, it was a random thought. I digress. Frank Brown, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Frank Brown writes, sup, Lou? Sup, Frank? You think Patriots gonna make AG a wide receiver? I thought about it. They got plenty of running backs. Now, I don't know what that running back room looks like anymore, and if some of those guys' contracts have expired, or, you know, they're moving on from somebody or not, but he's already said he wouldn't mind going back to playing receiver. They played against us last year, so they got to see Antonio Gibson up close and personal. I don't remember him necessarily having a massive impact in that game, but they clearly have a vision for him. The first day of free agency, and I get it, the running back market went quick. So if you liked something in there, you needed to grab it while it was still there, right? Literally, I told you the first move that was made, it hit 12 noon, and boom, the Bears had already signed DeAndre Swift to a 3-year, $24 million deal. That one was sitting in the drafts. Yesterday at, 10:48 at night, they had that in the drafts. Like, okay, we already got this one in the bag. As soon as it hit 12 noon, they set that thing to go off at 12 noon and bow. That one was done. So that set off a chain of events that saw Tony Pollard, like 4 minutes later, Titans, bam. Next thing you know, Saquon in Philadelphia, bam. Next thing you know, Josh Jacobs in Green Bay, bam. And so you saw those dominoes, boop, 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 getting knocked down. So again, for the Patriots to grab him the way that they did, either they really liked him and they felt like we misused him and there's so much more to get out of him, or they said, we see this guy potentially being a dynamic receiver. I mean, that's a really good question. I thought about it. I'm not going to lie to you. I thought about it. Scratch More Fortune. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Lou, what can you tell us about Dean Goldberry? Nothing. I don't even know who that is. If he's, somebody in the draft, if he's worth me figuring out who he is, then in due time, I'll be able to tell you who he is, what he does, and why he's of any value. But right now, I couldn't pick Dean Goldberry out of a photo lineup. JB, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. JB writes, Lou, if Gibson is gone, I'm late, bro. Yeah, Gibson's long gone. He left the building relatively early in the tampering period. You know, he was like probably the third or fourth running back gone. It was Swift to the Bears. Then it was Pollard to the Titans. Then I think it was Saquon to the Eagles. And then he being Antonio Gibson, went to the Patriots. And then I think after that, Josh Jacobs landed in Green Bay. And then the Giants got Devin Singletary. And then I think we ended up getting Austin Ekeler after that. So I think that was the order that it went in. Yeah, he's been gone. King of the Bluegrass. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes? Darius Robertson from Missouri gives me Justin Tuck vibes. I'd like him utilized in that regard more so. Like, he's a 5-tech. We don't play a lot of odd fronts as far as I'm concerned. We'll see. He fits more of an odd front defense. So that's a 3-4. That's a defense where you got a 5 technique, a guy that's more like 280, 85, 90, 95 pounds as your defensive end, who's more so his job is to hold the point of attack, physical in the run game, set a physical edge. And if he can get to the quarterback, great, right? But that's not, what you're necessarily looking for. Now, if you're playing an even front, I think his calling card might be reducing inside and rushing against the guard. I don't like him as an edge rusher outside against a tackle. Justin Tuck's specialty was kicking him inside, reducing him, and getting him to rush against a guard and using his skill set that way. I could see Darius Robinson having that kind of success. His skill set does look more like he does not have the same body type as a Justin Tuck, but his skill set is very similar to that of a Justin Tuck. Tuck was more of a tweener. He was like 275, but big enough, sturdy enough to kick inside. Same with Matthias Kiwanuka. Those guys were like interchangeable parts, but Tuck was the ultimate, like Brandon Graham. I think that's more of an apt comparison. Tuck and Brandon Graham, not the same body type, but the same ability to kick inside and rush against the guard and win big in that regard. So we'll see. Rocky D, been a member for 15 months. Really appreciate you. Rocky D writes, what is your take on Patrick Queen? Too expensive? I talked about this earlier on the podcast, but I think there's two things going on with Patrick Queen. One, his market. I think, is overrating his market. That's number one. So, yes, too expensive. He's going to have to come down on that price. And then two, I question whether he's Batman or Robin. He felt real Robinish to me. Like he was never Batman, and he wasn't very good until Roquan Smith showed up on the scene. That freed him up, that unlocked him, and then he became, Patrick Queen, former first-round pick out of LSU. Prior to that, I won't say he was heading towards being a bust, but he felt like a bit of a disappointment. So I question whether he can succeed on his own or if he needs that stud next to him. And I think that drives his value down too. So I think his market is one that he's got to come to a realization on, and I don't think he's there yet. And then once he wraps his brain around what's going on, he may ultimately take a 1-year deal to prove to someone, yeah, no, y'all got it all twisted. This is what I am. This is who I am. This is what I do. And then if he does that, he can hit the market again next year and then cash in, because he's still a young guy. But he may come to grips with, hey, I got to sign this, 3-year deal. I wouldn't. If you don't think it's worth what you think you're worth, then you sign a 1 or a 2-year deal. And then he's so young that he can still get after it again in a couple of years. And then you go about it that way. But We'll see. I think he is right now overpriced in his market. I think he is making it a lot harder on teams to sign him up. And he's going to have to come to the harsh reality that people have questions. He probably doesn't have the answers statistically. And he's going to have to realize that this is what it is. And once he gets to that point, a deal will get done. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat, or thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Been a member for 29 months. Who writes, bring back Wild Goose, Lou. Quinn can unlock him. I think I've seen him somewhere. Is he a gamer or something now? I swear I've seen Rashad Wild Goose doing something else. I could be tripping. JB, hey, you'll always have the jersey though, bro. They can never take that away from you. JB, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy JB writes, double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, what's up again, Lou? Yeah, I got the answer on Antonio. What did they get for him? Well, I think it was 3 years, $11 million, 11 and a half, something like that. It was solid money for Antonio. I was happy for him. Right around what we thought it would be, like $3.5 million per year, something to that effect. 11 is just a shade under 4 a year, so probably like 3.75 mil per year is what it averages out to, something to that effect. So good for him. Excuse me. King of the Bluegrass, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, B-Dog is crazy pissed about Barkley. Is he really? Maybe because they never offered him, but he had to know that this was a realistic possibility, that if they didn't re-sign him, he could end up in Philadelphia or even Dallas. Like, those two teams were on the table. We heard that. It's not like this was a surprise that came out of nowhere. It'd be one thing if, because all signs pointed to him going to Houston. And I think that's what Giants fans probably wrap their brains around. It's like, oh, he'll end up in Houston. You're okay. You can stomach that. He's in a different conference. You don't have to see him as often. He's out of your hair. You don't have to worry about him destroying you twice a year, potentially. So there's that. I think what might have made Giants fans a bit sour about it was, one, they never even offered him. They never even checked the temperature to see if there was something they could do to get a deal done. And then two, obviously he goes and ends up playing for the team that Giants fans despise the most, in the Eagles. So it's a double whammy. It sucks, but the Giants discarded him like yesterday's trash. They didn't need him. They treated him like he was just another guy, like a jag. So he said, all right, I got something for your ass. I'm going to the Eagles. Going to the dark side. I think he's more upset about where he went than anything else. Like, why there? Who knows? I told you the best angle for getting a player of Barkley's stature is revenge. You want a guy that has that itch to get revenge, and because of that, and it's not like they got a deal, like they got him on the cheap. He was looking for a deal above franchise tag money, which was $11 million for running backs, or just south of $11 million, I think, like whatever that number was. It was either 11 or just south of 11. And he got 13 and some change per year. So that's what he was looking for. So it's not like they got a discount or anything because he was upset. But I think that, obviously the Eagles are good. He's got a good chance of winning. He went to Penn State, so he's back in the state of Pennsylvania. All of those things probably played a factor. I don't know where Saquon Barkley is actually from. But what I can tell you is that sometimes players feel some type of way about how their situation ended. And if I can get back at them, play them twice a year, hurt them, I know that's how I can hurt them even more so than anything else I do. So that could have been a part of it too. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Fat American, writes, why are some teams good at tackling compared to others? They're all pros, right? Our team is so bad at tackling. Why? Question, is it coaching? Do our players not just tackle well? Probably worst tackling team I've seen. 05 team wasn't. You just had to throw 05 in there, didn't you? Had to. So here's what I'll tell you about the tackling thing. To me, it is definitely a coaching thing. It's coaching points. It's being a stickler for doing it correct. It's, having good habits. Not that they didn't practice it, not that they didn't, try to get these guys to do it a certain way, but I think the better tackling teams are the ones where you see them implement a certain way to do things, and this is how we're going to do it. And if you can't do it this way, you won't play. No ifs, ands about it, no exceptions to the rule. What's the first thing after Joe Witt Jr. talked about fast and physical and a level of violence, and this ain't for everybody? What was the next thing that he talked about? Tackling in space. And we're not talking about, one-on-one, mano-a-mano in the A-gap. We're talking about the shit that we saw last year repeatedly over and over again. One of our safeties being out in space against a back and getting cooked, taking a poor angle or getting juked out of their shoes, and a touchdown ensues. Ramondre Stevenson did it to Percival. Kenneth Walker III did it to, I think it was Percival again. It could have been a different safety. So Jack Del Rio, talked about capping runs, and Defoe was pretty good at that, getting guys on the ground. And these safeties that we had last year were not good at that. And so a lot of plays that could have easily been stopped for a 12 or 15-yard gain went for 45 or 55 or 65. And we weren't a good tackling team last year. There's no secrets about that. We're going to be a better tackling team this year because one of the first things Joe Witt Jr. talked about was, hey, we're going to tackle. He's like, that's one of the things my dad instilled in me is we're going to tackle. We're going to do it the right way. And wherever he's gone, good tackling teams have followed. Wherever he's gone, turnovers have followed. So these are things that we're looking for. And I think it starts with the coaching and the discipline. And that's what you're getting here with Quinn, Joe Witt Jr., Ken Norton. These guys are all teachers. These guys are all about the fundamentals and doing it the right way. Ben Hanniger. It's been a while, Ben. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Looking forward to watching some actual linebacker play this year. Spring has sprung, and all things are anew. Let's go. Feels good, doesn't it? Yeah. It's going to feel good to see the front seven actually be like, I want to see how they finish up, the rest of the front seven in terms of the other edge rusher that they bring in here and what the depth of that position actually looks like, and, how they finish filling out the rest of the linebacker position. You still can't be done. Like, we don't have a lot of linebackers. They had a lot of restricted free agents that they could have tendered. Dejon Harris, they didn't, tender him. They could have brought back. They could have brought back the linebacker from North Dakota State that went to LSU that Dallas drafted that we ended up getting. They didn't tender him. They could have brought back our linebacker from Michigan. I don't know why his name is escaping me. And they didn't do that either. So I don't think they have any plans of bringing back any of those linebackers. Clearly, Cody Barton's not coming back. So what I'm telling you is that the cupboard's pretty bare. So you can't just stop at Frankie Luvu and Jamin Davis and be like, oh, yeah, we done. There's still more work to do with the linebacker position. But I'm intrigued about the front seven for the first time in a long time. Because normally when we would talk about the team, when we thought we were loaded up front, it was just the D-line. We would separate the linebackers and the D-line. They weren't the same. They weren't included in the discussion. Oh, yeah, they've got a great defensive line. Now I want to see what the front seven looks like. Because we actually got dudes that might take advantage of the dogs in front of them and actually play on the opposite side of the line of scrimmage and make plays. That's what Frankie Luvu does. Just Andre, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you, Jonathan Hart, Cox, and Hudson. Jabril Cox. Let's get that right. And Khalid Hudson. None of those guys are going to be back. From what it appears, none of these guys are going to be back. Just Andre, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Just Andre writes, I would love Chin tomorrow, Wilson with Luvu, dream linebackers. We'll see. Only time will tell. I think if you want Wilson, you have to draft him in the second round. Are you prepared to spend 36 or 40 on a linebacker when you probably are still going to need end and tackle? That's the question you got it. Because I guarantee you, Peyton Wilson, if the medicals check out and everything looks good, I guarantee you he will not be there in the third round by the time we get on the board again. So if you really want him, you have to spend either 36 or 40 on him. Probably not 36, because that to me, that pick screams, hey, whether you like it or you don't like it, you're going to have to get a tackle at 36. That's what that feels like to me. Unless, and I made this point earlier when I talked about it, there are 2 or 3 tackles that you feel really good about. And 2 that's not a comforting feeling because you could end up with neither one of them. You could pass on those 2 tackles thinking, oh, one of them will be there by 40, and then 37 and 38 are both tackles, the 2 tackles in question. And then you get on the board at 40 and you twiddling your thumbs, right? You take one of those tackles at 36 and you figure it out when you get to 40. So I think if this thing plays out the way that I think it's going to play out, ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Tackle is 36. That's what it's feeling like right now. Now, 40 could be anything. All bets are off on 40. But again, the edge rushing department isn't super, super deep. Because we think that 3, 4, 5 of these dudes are going in the first round, if not early portion of the second. And then once you get all of those guys knocked out, there's a nice little drop off. So are you willing to spend what it's going to take? Are you afraid of that drop off? Does that drop off not bother you? And you're like, nah, we good. We saw some guys that we like. Who's to say? We'll see. JB, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, what is Ekeler supposed to do? Ekeler is a great third down type of back. A guy that is one of the best pass catching running backs in the NFL. He's a touchdown machine, has been for really the duration of his career. Last year was sort of a down year, but I think there were a lot of factors that went into last year's decline. One, he wasn't happy about his situation. He wanted to be traded. He wanted to be paid. He requested a trade. The Chargers gave him the ability to seek a trade, and there just wasn't any interest there because of giving up draft picks and then having to pay him. Nobody was interested in doing that. And so, his mind just wasn't where it needed to be. He went into the season thinking, I got to protect me, right? So he sustains an ankle injury and, did he milk it? I don't know. I can't say that, but I wouldn't blame him if he did, knowing that I'm not going to be back here next year. They're not going to pay me. I need to keep myself fresh and healthy for the next, team that's going to be looking at me. And so I just thought mentally he probably wasn't where he needed to be last year. You weren't going to get the best Austin Ekeler. But if you want to know what he excels at, I can tell you right now, it's finding pay dirt, finding the end zone. Austin Ekeler has been, for a number of years, a fantasy football dynamo, like one of the best running backs in fantasy football, because of his ability to find the end zone. So you're talking about a guy, and I'll just give you some statistics over the last couple of years. So in let's start with 2021. 2021, he had 911 yards rushing and 12 touchdowns on the ground. And then as a receiver in 2021, he had 8 touchdowns. So that's 20 touchdowns that season and another 600 yards, 647 receiving. His high receiving was 993 on 92 catches in 2019. And he had 8 touchdowns that year. So 8 is his most receiving touchdowns in a season. He did that twice, once in 2019, once in 2021. In 2022, he rushed for 915 yards, which is a career high, on 204 attempts, played in all 17 games, and scored 13 touchdowns, and then had another 5 on the ground. So that's 18 total touchdowns. So he's a touchdown machine. So in that 2-year span in 21 and 22, he scored and accounted for 38 touchdowns in a 2-year span. So he averaged 19 touchdowns over a 2-year span. Last year was a bit of a down year for him because, as I mentioned, I don't think he was all there. He, missed some time with an injury, all of that good stuff. But he still, even saying that, right, he still accounted for 6 touchdowns last year, 5 on the ground, 1 through the air. And so he had 107 receptions, which is a career high in 2022. So you're talking about a guy that's had almost 1,000 yards receiving in the season, over 100 catches in the season. He's had 2 seasons where he approached 20 touchdowns total. 1 year where he actually had 20 touchdowns, another season where he just fell short at 18. So he's a touchdown magnet. He's a guy that can catch it out of the backfield, one of the best receiving backs in the NFL, and he's still got some tread left on the tires. So, King of the Bluegrass, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, his thumbnail said traitor. Oh, never mind. So he's putting this on Saquon and upset. I told you he was probably more pissed off the fact that he ended up in Philadelphia. Because, there's no team that Bad Dog and Giants fans hate more than the Eagles. He could have gone anywhere. Even if he would have gone to Dallas, they would have been pissed off, but not quite like how they're pissed off now. They felt like he betrayed them. You saw what Tiki Barber said, right? Like, bro, you're dead to us now. Good luck, but you just went to the one place you couldn't go, bro. It's like if, and I know this isn't an apples to apples comparison, but it would have been like had Darryl Green left Washington and went and finished his career in Dallas. Like, you can't do that, dude. There's no way, right? It would have felt like that. And so it would have felt like betrayal. So that's what he's feeling right now. But you can't be mad at the man. They offered him what they offered him, and they're a good team. He feels like he's going to be able to do something that he hasn't really been able to do in New York, which is play in playoff games and have a chance to win a Super Bowl. And he gets to stay in the division. He gets to stay in the NFC East. He doesn't go that far from home. I think Saquon is from somewhere in that upper east region of the U.S. So New York, Jersey, somewhere like that, Pennsylvania. He's somewhere in there. He's from one of those areas, right? So he's going to stay close to home. Maybe he was never really truly in love with the idea of leaving the North, right? Because I think he's from New Jersey or New York. I'm not sure. I think he's from New York, but I'm not 100% sure about that. Somewhere in that conglomerate, he's from that area. Maybe he never was interested in going south to the Texans. And the opportunity came to go to the Eagles, and it was a no-brainer, right? Played his college football at Penn State, so he knows all about Pennsylvania, and it's not that far from where he grew up. My guess is this was a planned hit, and while Giants fans were caught off guard, they shouldn't have been. This was being boundied about over the last week or so. Hey, Saquon receiving a lot of interest from the NFC East teams. Dallas and the Eagles were the two teams in particular. Should not have been a surprise. But clearly, he is not happy about it. That's funny. Chauncey Davis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, Lou, I know he's not our problem anymore, but what actually happened to Chase Young? I heard you mention psychology was your major at ODU. Thanks. So it was my minor. My major was sociology, but sociology / criminal justice, and then my minor was sociology. Was psychology rather. I said this, I introduced this on the podcast earlier today. I don't think he ever recovered, not only physically, but mentally from the injury. You know, when you've never been injured in your life with an injury of that was a serious injury. May I remind you, right? When you've never incurred that type of strife, that kind of adversity, you've always been the man. People have always been telling you how good you are. He hit a crossroads in his young NFL career. He went from being at the top of the mountain his rookie season. He could do no wrong. Won Defensive Rookie of the Year. Every accolade was coming his way. He was the face of the franchise. He was at NASCAR events. Almost like Jonathan Allen. Everything that they did, they rolled him out. His face was at the forefront, and life was good, right? It felt like he was at Ohio State all over again. He was the big man on campus. Then that second season comes. Him and Tez are talking about breaking the sack record for, teammates in a season, and this, that, and the third. And then he goes out and through 10 games, 8, 9, 10 games, however many games he had played that year, he had a sack and a half. And people were already on him about that. And then he gets hurt. So you couple the fact that he wasn't playing the kind of football that we saw in his rookie season in his second year, and then he gets hurt. Now you got people questioning, is this guy a bust? And then he started talking that crazy shit about how football doesn't define me. I'm telling you, he went through the ringer mentally. Because I said this on the podcast. Did we ever question years 1 and 2 Chase Young effort? Did we ever at any point watch this man on tape loaf it on the backside of a play, loaf it on a play that's run at him? Did we ever see him jogging and, kind of just going through the No, he was balls to the wall when he first got to the league. You couldn't run screens to his side. You couldn't try to run away from him because he'd chase you down backside. He was a big ball of energy when he first came into the league. And I think somewhere along the way, he lost that love. And I think it happened when he got injured and there was so much negativity. So many people, questioning him. He's never been questioned in his career, in his life. Now he's being questioned. Now people are calling him a bust. So now he gets defensive. Now football's not fun anymore. And going to San Francisco was a breath of fresh air. And initially, it was like the spark he needed to get his shit going again. But then came expectations like, bro, we trying to win the Super Bowl. And you done come over here and you ain't getting shit done. You ain't getting to the quarter. And I think he got in his head again. And the end result was watching him bullshit on the field, loafing backside. That shit was nasty to watch, man. It was hideous. And don't think for 1 second the 49ers didn't see the shit, because they did. And it's not a surprise that he hasn't found a new home yet. And I'll take it a step further. Wherever he signs, I guarantee you it's a 1-year deal. Nobody's going to pay him, a multi-year contract. Nobody's been impressed with him post-injury. He hasn't done anything to warrant that kind of money. And so it's going to be a 1-year prove-it deal somewhere. It might be still $10 million, but it might be, a base of 6.5, 7, and then with incentives, it can get to 10. But he's going to have to prove it to somebody. I think he lost the love of the game with that injury. And physically, I don't know if he'll ever be the same. That was a major injury. That wasn't just, oh, he tore his ACL or, oh, man, he ruptured his Achilles. He did some serious damage to his knee, man. Some serious shit went down. I don't know if he'll ever be that same guy. And mentally, more importantly, I don't know if he'll ever be that guy again. Anyway, I digress. Smack City, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Smack City writes, when's the last time you've seen a QB with Jaden Daniels' skill set win a Super Bowl? It doesn't work come playoff time. Need a skill set like Drake who consistently wins Super Bowls. That's the difference. No, you're not wrong about that particular skill set. We've never seen that work, whether it was Randall Cunningham once upon a time or it was Michael Vick, who kind of, Steve Young is the one guy I think is the anomaly. He's the one. And remember, it took Steve Young a long time, and he had to remember the old monkey, get that monkey off my back, because it took Steve Young a very long time to finally win that Super Bowl. Yes, it does take those quarterbacks. It seems like it's a little bit harder on them come postseason. It's not as easy to run around. Everybody's good. Defenses are faster. They're keying in on you. But that doesn't mean you have to apply all of that to Jaden Daniels, right? Just because it didn't work for Cunningham, it didn't work for Vic, it hasn't worked for Lamar Jackson, doesn't mean it won't work for Jaden Daniels. He's not those guys. He's his own guy. So you can't use that as an excuse. That's a data point, and it's worth mentioning. You can't just ignore that. That's real. It exists, but that can't be the end all be all. That's just a part of the discussion. So I hear you, but you can't, that's not a mic drop. You're literally dropping the mic with that. Yeah, these guys don't win Super Bowls, and you drop the mic. You can't take this guy. You got to take Drake May, because those kind of guys win the Super Bowl. You can't just drop the mic off that, because there's more to the story than just that. Smack City, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Smack City writes, ball placement off platform running fast is greater than running fast. You're not wrong, but again, what I'm going to continue to do is prepare myself for Washington going in either direction. I'm not going to badmouth either one of these prospects, because one of them is going to end up being a Washington Commander. And no matter which one it is, I'm going to be excited. So you're not going to get me to badmouth one to prop up the other. Each of them have their strengths. Both of them have weaknesses. It is what it is. Which one fits to your liking? What's your preference? I've already said I've failed in assessing those with the talents and the skill sets of a Drake May in the past. And so that does factor into my decision making. Yes, the tape isn't the cleanest, and it's uneven, and it's easy for people to poke and prod at Drake May and say that he's this, he's that. I know you've heard of what Chris Sims has said about him, and others have said similar things, that he's not the first, second, or third quarterback in this draft class, and it's easy to do that to him. I did the same thing to Justin Herbert. I was flat out wrong, obviously. And so sometimes you just got to take into consideration, this is what it is, right? And I see a lot of good traits with Jaden Daniels. And if he's the pick, I'm going to feel good about him. I'm going to feel just as good about him, because he's a playmaker. And I told you this before because it was told to me. John, what was his name? Oh, man. I had that guest on from Fansided. And John sat here and he told us Jaden Daniels is the safest quarterback. He's got the highest floor. But if you're looking for a higher ceiling, now the floor is lower, but you're looking for a higher ceiling, it's Drake May, and it's Jaden Dan, and it's Caleb Williams. And he was right. Spot on. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. CGM87. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Lou, all that memorabilia was nostalgic. McManus is a downgrade at kicker to shaking my effing head. Overpay Armstrong. Ekeler 3 years too late. I'm happy with Luvu, though. Not impressed, and blame Mayhew's ass. So, McManus, is that a thing? Did they go out and they sign Brandon McManus? I guess I have to go look it up. Let's see. Yes. Oh, yes, it is. It's right here in my face. Right here on the ESPN joint. So Zach Moss is now a member of the Bengals on a 2-year, $8 million deal. They're going to release Joe Mixon. So that is that. And we signed kicker. And I told you these kickers were going fast. So they needed to do something because it was not looking pretty. That market was not looking pretty. Brandon McManus agrees to a 1-year deal with the Commanders for $3.6 million. So that doesn't scream security. That screams, hey, we got a kicker. All else fails, we got a kicker. They could still draft a guy in the 6th round. They could still bring in an undrafted kicker after the draft is over. And I expect them to do that, personally. Brandon McManus is not a long-term answer. They didn't sign him to a 3-year deal. They signed him to a 1-year deal. And McManus wasn't good last year for Jacksonville. Let me look him up. I just remember him missing some big kicks, including the kick against Cincinnati on that Monday night game that they lost when there was no Joe Burrow, and they ended up losing to the former Washington quarterback. So let me check out Brandon McManus's numbers. It probably ain't that much worse. It's probably not that much worse than Sly's numbers, who missed some kicks. But remember, we had snapping issues, all kinds of bullshit last year. So, there is that too. But now, Brandon McManus is a really good kicker, and he's got a big leg. It's not bigger than Joey Sly's, though. Just keep it a buck with you. He kicked in altitude in Denver for years. But he got a big leg still. But I just want to make it clear that I think I would have kept Joey Sly personally. I deal with the devil I know than the devil I don't know. Let's see. He was 4-4 from 20 to 29. He better be. 10 of 10 from 30 to 39. He was 11 of 13 in the money distance. So, which isn't bad. And then he was 5 of 10 from 50 plus, which is that. You got to be better than that in today's NFL because you're going to kick a lot of 50-plus field goals. He missed a lot of kicks in that department. He ended up being 30 of 37 last year for 81.1%, which was one of his worst percentages of his career. And I'll say with the amount of kicks being 25 or more. He's had some seasons where he didn't attempt. We'll put that number at 30, where his 30 attempts, but it wasn't a great year for him last year. I'll say that. Now, while we're here, we might as well compare him to Joey Sly and see what Joey Sly did last year. He was 2 of 3 from 20 to 29, which is terrible. He missed a chippy last year. I think that was the one against the Bears. Might have been. Or no, it was the one against the Giants. It got blocked. Remember? That was that one. Got blocked. 7 of 7 from 30 to 39. 9 of 7 from 40 to 49. And one of those was the Denver miss in week 2 with the bad snap. And then from 50, he was 3 of 5. So he was really good. But like I told you, the percentage wasn't great. 79.2. So he wasn't good last year from a percentage standpoint. But there were factors, obviously, that were in the mix. But you're swapping out one, big leg mid kicker for another. And the guy that's had the better career to this point has been McManus. But again, I don't think this precludes you from going out and obtaining another kicker. I just think this puts you in a position where you got a kicker, you got an insurance policy. Should you not draft a kicker, should you not find one to your liking in, you know, the post-draft process with the undrafted free agents, you got a guy that you can take to camp and feel good about. I think there's competition coming in. When you sign a guy to a 1-year deal, nothing's guaranteed. That $3.6 million, that's not fully guaranteed. My guess is, you know, incentive laden. You know, the base is probably 1.5 million or something, and it's a number you can part ways with and not cringe, right? So I won't go as far as to say that he's the kicker here when the season starts, but what it does say is Joey Sly's gone. My poor guy, right? You know, he has a long snapper that can't snap, and I think it affected him. Clearly, there were some kicks missed, kick blocked behind the snaps and things of that nature, but they're clearing house, man. Even the kicker's not safe. I mean, and I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked, but damn, I didn't think Joey was going to get it too. But even Joey can get it. One for the road, right? He's a slugger. Oh, man. But just tackling what you said, I don't think they overpaid for Armstrong. We don't know what he's going to do. That might actually be an underpay when it's all said and done. And if he performs, it can get up to 45. They set it up to where he can earn the rest of that money. But $11 million per year for a guy that's gotten 16 sacks over the last 2 seasons, that doesn't seem like a overpay to me, at least. Then you have Ekeler, 3 years too late. That's debatable. I mean, look, it is what it is. I would have preferred a faster back. I've already said that. A younger, cheaper, faster back. He's not that expensive, though, so I'm not even going to throw cheaper in there. Ekeler's still productive. He can still help you. And then you said you're happy with Luvu, though. So, you know, we'll see. I like the moves. Spence Kalis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, maybe we should trade our second. Our last 2 are busts. Yeah, man. The second hasn't been good. This is one of the things that I thought about immediately when Adam Peters came on board and we started to change over the regime. And can we find, once Dan Snyder left, can we finally break the curse of the second round? And I'm hoping it starts with Sam Cosmi. Because right now, he's got a chance to turn out to be a damn good guard here for a very long time. And so I'm hoping Cosmi is the start of a run on second rounders that we can be excited about. And that in that process, you know, I think it might be too late for Fedarian Mathis. I'm not going to even hold you. You know, his first 2 years he's been absent the first 2 years. You know, one due to injury, and this past year, he was invisible when he was on the field. You know, dealt with another injury and never really, you know, really contributed anything. So I'm punting on him. And I probably shouldn't. This year 3 is going to be a big year for Fedarian Mathis. If he's healthy, I'm hoping that Big Phil is able to prove a lot of us wrong, including myself. I thought it was a terrible pick in the moment, and he's done nothing to dissuade me. But I'm looking at Quan Martin, and I'm saying, you got a chance to be, you know, similar to Sam Cosmi. You got a chance to help change that second round narrative, my man. And he showed us flashes at the end of the season. So I'm hoping that the second round and the failures and the struggles are a thing of the past, and we're moving in a different direction there. So we'll see. Can't say that the last 2 were busts because Quan Martin played well towards the end of the season. And he had 2 interceptions last year, and one was a game clincher. And we started to see him having that range and moving sideline to sideline and, you know, being able to get guys on the ground, being around the football. He started to look like a playmaker. So Lorenzo Simpson, my guy Zoe, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Who writes, can Chicago get stuck with Fields? You're damn right they can. I think they're going to trade him, but it's going to end up being for a lot less than they thought. And when they came into this situation, there were people that were saying, hey, you might be able to milk a first out of this and get your first back. I was like, nah, I don't see that happening. But I thought without question they were going to be able to move him for a second. And then, somewhere along the way, teams was like, nah, F that. And I still think Pittsburgh is a destination that, people are just punting on because they got Russell Wilson. They got Russell Wilson on a 1-year, $1.2 million deal. That shouldn't stop. I think that what that does, and that's smart business by the Steelers, is that's vet minimum for a guy that could potentially start for you. But what it does is it ensures that you have a guy, no matter what happens, we got a guy that can start for us. Now, you look around the league, Falcons have taken care of their quarterback situation. Bucks have taken care of their quarterback situation. Vikings are still odd man out right now, but I don't think they're interested in Justin Fields. We'll see, but it doesn't feel like they're interested in him. Raiders went and signed Gardner Minshew again. That's them doing the same thing the Steelers did, which is, hey, I don't know if we're going to get one of these young boys in the draft, but in the event that we don't have to trade for Justin Fields if we don't want to. And I don't think they do. I still think the Steelers, if they want him, could go back to the Bears and say, hey, ain't no market out here, bro. I'm all you got. You don't want him on the roster. I know you don't. So tell you what, I'm going to give you this 5. Conditionally, if he wins the job and he plays X amount of snaps, 70, 75% of the snaps this year, it turns into a 4. And that might be what they may be reduced to. Or it might be a conditional 4 that could turn into a day 2 pick and a 3, right? But you looking at some next year type stuff with those kinds of, equations. If you want your pick now, then you just got to take something. So the Steelers have played this well. Same thing with the Raiders. If they're still interested, they put themselves in a position where I don't need them. And everybody else is like, we don't need them either. So now the Bears have been backed into a corner where they got to take something. At first, they were the ones calling the shots like, hey, we trading him to the highest bidder. We starting to bid at a 2nd round pick. And they were hoping that this bid would get to a 1st. Now everybody's like, nah, I'm good. Now you gotta hope somebody take him off your hands. He says, if so, does the price drop to move up to number 1? ATL and Pitt are off the board. Nah, I don't think they go from, well, we want Caleb Williams. I've read this, and again, believe half of what you see, none of what you hear, even if it's spat by me, your man Louie T. So I've heard that they walked away from the combine even more impressed with Caleb Williams. They went in feeling good about him. They walked away saying, we got to have him. I like you. I want you. I'm going to have you. That's how they walked away from the combine. So if that's the case, it don't matter if they can move Justin Fields or not. They'll figure it out. But they're going to get Caleb Williams. And that's not changing. So if that is in fact the case, I don't see them saying, oh, man, we stuck with Justin. So I guess we got to trade the number 1 pick now because we can't move Justin. Bullshit. We'll figure it out. But we're not passing up on this opportunity to get the guy that we think can change the fortunes of our franchise. They're not trading away that pick. JB, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, kicker has been signed. Bye-bye, Sly Guy. Yeah. I don't love the acquisition of Brandon McManus. I don't hate it. He's no different than Joey Sly. I think Sly's leg is bigger, to be honest with you. But McManus, he doesn't have a chump leg. I don't trust him the way I did, say, 5 years ago when he was kicking for the Denver Broncos in Mile High. So I think this is an insurance policy. I still think they could be looking for a kicker at some point late in the draft into free agency, free agency undrafted pool of kickers. We'll see. If not, Brandon McManus it is. Brandon McManus it is. Joe Rockhead, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, we signed kicker Brandon McManus. It's real. Bye Sly. Yeah, it's real. I looked it up. Look, I should know better. I've been preaching to y'all about, turnover on this roster and, don't get attached to any of these players because nobody's safe, et cetera, et cetera. I ain't think they was going to do my man Sly like that. Like, when I realized it was really real when I was like, you know what? I don't think they bringing back All-Pro Revo. I don't think they bringing him back either. And seeing that they haven't brought back any of the dudes, not a single free agent. Think about it. Cam Curl, Kendall Fuller, Curtis Samuel, Jeremy Reeves, Joey Sly. Like, we talked about all these free agents, which ones they would bring back. Cornelius Lucas. None of these dudes, none of them have been brought back. Not a single one. Not one guy have they looked at and said, you know what, we like you. We're going to bring you back. The only guys that they've done that with were futures contracts, meaning guys that weren't on the team, were on the practice squad, and they signed them to futures deals. And they did that with the UCLA receiver / kick returner, and they did that with Mason Brooks, the guy that we signed and spent the most money on as an undrafted rookie out of Ole Miss last year. None of the guys that actually played snaps for this team has been re-signed here. So, I mean, that tells you all you need to know. They're not – you guys were a part of this 4-win operation. You're not going to be a part of the solution moving forward. Y'all can go. Y'all are all dismissed. I didn't think they was going to do my boy Joey like that, though. CGM87, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, I'm overreacting and like the deals being incentive-based, but spending $4 million on a new kicker when Sly was a minor problem at most is dumb in my opinion. Have to get a left tackle. I mean, yeah, they didn't even spend $4 million. And if you're crying about $4 million, and I'm not, being hypercritical of you in particular, I'm just saying if you're squabbling over $4 million for a kicker, then you're really just nitpicking. You're being upset because you want to be mad, right? And we've all done that before. When you don't like something, you'll nitpick. And if you're not feeling it, you nitpick. But, I mean, it's a 1-year, $3.6 or $7 million deal for a kicker. Like, we're not tripping about that. He doesn't even have to make the squad. That's not even a deal that ensures that you're here in September. That gets you to August, maybe early September. That doesn't ensure that you're here on September 4th, and I'm just making up a date, when the rosters are trimmed down. That doesn't ensure anything. So I wouldn't get too hung up on that stuff. Sly was a minor problem, but he was a problem nonetheless. I'm not going to sit here and act like Joey didn't miss kicks. I'm still mad about the kick, and I don't think there was a bad snap. I'm still mad about the kick he missed against Chicago. I really thought that we would have come back and won that game. Had he made that kick, it would have cut the lead to 6 and or 7, and we would have had a chance to go down. And all we needed was a stop, and we got the stop, and we could have gotten the ball back. We didn't get the stop. I lied. He missed the kick, and then all hell broke loose. We got within 10. A made kick there would have cut it to 7, I believe. And I thought we were going to go down, score, go for 2 and win. Even though Rivera didn't do it the week before, I thought this week would have maybe pushed him to go for it had we gotten back to that point. But we never got to find out. He missed the kick. They went down. I think they scored a field goal, then they scored a touchdown, and then they ended up beating us by 20. So there's that. But we that field goal would have gotten us within, I think it would have gotten us to 27-20, and he missed. So whatever. I digress. B-Hat, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. B-Hat writes, do you still think Dan and crew would, first of all, Dan Quinn. It's Dan Quinn, it's Quinn, it's DQ. You can't just call him Dan. We got trauma around here, okay? We've already made that a rule. That's a ground rule, okay? Can't just call Dan Quinn Dan. Can't do it. Won't do it. Can win with it. Won't win with it. Do you still think DQ and crew could still sign a big name DN to go with Armstrong? And do you think they're still looking for vets to fill out spots? Yeah, I do. Now, the defensive end, I don't think they're going to go big money. They could. I wouldn't rule anything out. I've said that already. We still are feeling them out, trying to see what it is they're looking to accomplish. But nothing that I've seen, nothing that I feel in my spirit indicates that they're going to go spend more than what they just spent on Dorance Armstrong on edge rusher. Like, they signed another edge rusher, 1-2-year deal, $14 million, 2 years, $14 million on somebody to come in here and provide depth. I can't see them going out and signing a guy that exceeds the contract of Dorance Armstrong as an edge rusher. Meanwhile, are they going to sign more veterans? You damn right. They're not done. They just signed a kicker, for crying out loud. They're not done. I told you, by the time we get to Wednesday and the start of the actual, league year, when all of this stuff can become official, we're going to be somewhere in the 8 to 10 range in terms of maneuvers made and guys that we're bringing in. We'll be in the 8 to 10 range. We're already at 6 now, 5 today, including McManus, Biadasz, Dorance Armstrong, Austin Ekeler, Frankie Luvu, and McManus. That's 5, and then you got Zach Ertz. That's 6. So I think you're gonna have 3 more signings, 4 more signings tomorrow. We'll see how it goes, but they still haven't spent big. You think about all the moves that they've made. The biggest deal so far is Frankie Luvu's 3-year, $36 million deal. They're not breaking the bank on anybody. It's 3 years, 36. It's 3 years, 33. It's 3 years, 30. It's 2 years, 11. It's 1 year, 3.6, 3.7, whatever it is. They haven't broken the bank. Zach Ertz is a 1 year, $5 million deal. So they're spending cautiously as I expected them to. They haven't broken the bank. I still think there's one, item out there that they may spend on, but generally, if you're going to spend on something lavishly, you do it in the first day. And I feel like today was day one of free agency, as I've said already numerous times. Even though it's the tampering period and nothing's official, today's like the first day of free agency. We saw Kirk Cousins get the massive deal. We saw Robert Hunt get the massive deal. If you're going to spend big bread, today's the day to do it. So I don't see us spending big. But there's still tackles, corners, and safeties out there, and we'll see what those markets end up looking like. We'll see. They're not done. So, yes, there are more veterans to come. King of the Bluegrass. And don't rule out a guy like Dante Fowler Jr. I'm not interested, but they're probably not done shopping at the Cowboy store. And you could do a hell of a lot worse than Dante Fowler Jr. Like, if they signed him, I'd love it. Bring him on. But I don't want him starting. He's that third rotational depth edge rusher to go along with KJ Henry. I'm cool with that. Well, you still should be drafting a guy, even if you bring on Dante Fowler Jr. I'm okay with Fowler Jr. coming in here as a rotational guy. Because you won't pay a bunch of money and he can still do some things in a limited role. But I'm not interested with him starting opposite of Dorance Armstrong. No, that's not okay. So I could see another guy like that being signed for sure. But you still need to draft somebody if you're going to go about it that way. Excuse me. King of the Bluegrass. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, I believe Daniels is QB1. In the draft, you're saying. Thought you were saying he's a QB1. Like, yeah, of course. He's a starting quarterback in this league. No, you're saying in this draft, he's QB1. Oh, interesting. Spence Collies, thank you for being a member for 19 months. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, was talking about the first round seconds, RG3 and Young. Oh, you're talking about the second overall pick. Got you. I can't live in the past. I can't live off of that, but I get it. You got PTSD. I get it. Sneakers forever. Stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB mob. You know what to do. Show Sneakers forever some love. Welcome him with open arms. Sneakers forever. Welcome to the squad. Glad to have you on board. Look forward to chopping it up with you. So, Atomic Ant, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Atomic Ant writes, if we get this QB right, oh boy. A lot of teams can say that. If the Bears get it right, oh boy. If the Patriots get it right, oh boy. That's any team in the league. If you get the most important position right, look out. Sky's the limit. Changes everything. Changes your trajectory, changes what you could be, changes your fortunes immediately. I mean, look at the Texans, right? If you get it wrong, though, there's a downside. Case in point, look at the Panthers last year. Now, again, I don't think they got it wrong. I think they got his environment wrong. But again, we've seen the repercussions of not getting it right. So we'll see. That's all we can say is we'll see. Sneakers forever. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, with Luvu, can Jamin Davis play that Michael Parsons style, playing everywhere? I would like that with that speed. We'll see what they have in mind for him. We'll see. Anything's possible. I wouldn't rule out anything. I would not rule out anything. Luvu is a hell of a blitzer, as I've mentioned already, and he's a hell of a guy off the edge, and he can win and he can get to the quarterback. So you might be thinking about the wrong dude. They might be doing that with Frankie Luvu. Who knows? We'll see. JB. Stand up. You, my friend, are the newest member of the MOBB. Mob, y'all know what to do. Show JB some love. Welcome him with open arms. Welcome to the squad, JB. So glad to have you. Ethan Henderson, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Ethan writes, I think people are sleeping on Defoe. Think he is a dog. I think he's a dog, he says. I think it's a case of out of sight, out of mind. It's easy to forget about what a guy is capable of when you haven't seen him do it in over a calendar year, essentially. Defoe had a strong 2022 campaign. He was one of the best members of the secondary that year, if you recall. That was his breakout season. He was a pleasant surprise. We heard about him all offseason, OTAs, into camp, and it literally transferred over to the field week 1. So right away, he put us on notice in that Jacksonville game. We don't win it without him. And so he had a strong year. He picked the ball off, made plays, and we were expecting much of the same last year, and he gets hurt. And he wasn't playing his best football before he got hurt. It wasn't the same Defoe from the year prior, but he can still play. That's why I said they don't have to go out and get a free safety. We got dudes that can play free safety. Defoe can play free safety. I think you need a guy to come down and be physical. Defoe can do that too, but he was a bit reckless in college in that role. I'd prefer them to go after Jeremy Chin, as I've mentioned, but we'll see what they decide to do. I just think it's a case of people haven't seen, Defoe play at a high level in a while, because he didn't really do anything last year. So you got to go back to 2022 when he was playing his best ball. And that's a long time for people to have to go back. That's out of sight, out of mind, right? Kevin, the PRF, been a member for 22 months. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, quick music head interlude. Rip to Lachelle Laws, a.k.a. Boss. You know I got them buck wild thrills, living foul kills. Wow. You always hate to see somebody pass. And the beauty of music is when somebody passes away, they leave the music behind, though. They leave that gem for you, or gems. And that'll always live on, right? You always got a piece of that artist. So rest in peace. The Boss. Joe Rockhead, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, just signed Nick Allegretti, guard from Kansas City. Is this true? Let's check it out. All right. Let's see if I see this anywhere. Probably got to go on socials to find it out. Let's see. Oh, I didn't even notice this. John Runyon got a 3-year, $30 million deal with the Giants. Sheesh. He was one of my free agent targets. Yikes. Landon Dickerson signed a massive deal to stay with the Eagles, 4 years, $84 million. I told you Robert Hunt would pace the interior offensive lineman. He's probably going to get the most out of anybody. I don't see a tackle exceeding that 5-year, $100 million. There's just the tackle market just isn't that robust, and there isn't a guy that heads that group. He would have been gone already off the board. So I think the tackle that you see get the most is probably already gotten it, and that's Michael Winnu of New England, who got I think a 3-year deal to go back there, $50-some-odd million, I think. Anyway, I done got sidetracked. I'm supposed to be looking up to see if this information is legit. The Jets are signing 49ers former first-round pick Javon Kinlaw to a 1-year deal. Here it is. Former Chiefs guard Nick Allegretti is expected to sign with the Commanders on a 3-year, $16 million deal. Allegretti started in the Super Bowl and played the entire game despite suffering a torn UCL in his elbow in the second quarter. So he's a tough guy, clearly, by playing through that injury in the Super Bowl. And that's another guy you throw. And I told you it was going to be a low-level guard if they went and got somebody, because you didn't have to do much. I thought you could spend more at guard, like the 3 for $30 that the Giants spent on John Runyon Jr. I would have preferred to do that. Allegretti is cool. It feels Andrew Wiley-ish. At least he's not going to be experimented out at tackle, however. He'll just be playing his natural position of guard. But again, what that allows you to do. So now the count is up to 6, right? I told you by the time we get to tomorrow, it'd be by the time we get to Wednesday, rather, it'd be somewhere in the 8 to 10 range. It's looking more like 10 to 12 range. That number keeps going up. We've now signed 6 guys today, plus Zach Ertz last week. It's 7 now, right? I told you, fast and furious. We were going to be active. We got a lot of roster spots. They're not going to spend a lot of money on any individual, but they're going to spend a lot of money in aggregate. You're seeing that, right? I'm still waiting on the, an assortment of 1-year deals. That's probably going to come next week. Here's another 3-year deal not a ton of money, $16 million for a serviceable guard that's going to come in here, compete at left guard. That $16 million doesn't ensure him that he's starting. All it does is ensure that he'll come in here and provide you. You know what I liken it to? And I always like to bring him up because he was really good for us, whether he had to play or he was a core backup. It reminds me a lot of when we brought in Wes Schweitzer. I think it was a 3-year, $13.3 million deal or something like that. And Wes, I thought, earned every bit of that deal. Wes was outstanding for us when we needed him to play either guard, and in a pinch, when we needed him to play center, it wasn't the best, but he got the job done. Wes wasn't guaranteed to start, and he didn't start. He was our first guard off the bench, first interior offensive lineman at the guard positions off the bench. And that's what Nick Allegretti provides us with. We could end up trying out Ricky Stromberg at guard, and he might beat out Nick Allegretti for all we know. It's just another body to throw in there. Allegretti may ultimately be your starter at left guard. Cool beans. All it means is we don't have to go out and get a guard in the draft now. Again, another position that you're done with. You don't have to look for a center. You don't have to look for a guard. You don't have to look for a tight end. You don't have to look for a running back. You've knocked those list of needs down to tackle, corner, running back, or return man, receiver, linebacker again, if you want to go that route, defensive end, edge rusher, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they're narrowing the needs that we need for the draft, and they're doing a really good job of doing that. So thank you for that, Joe Rockhead, Nick Allegretti. Let me see if anything else has happened. So Commanders free agency so far, I just seen a tweet come out. Obviously we know all of these things already. Austin Ekeler, Tyler Biadasz, Frankie Luvu, Dorance Armstrong, Nick Allegretti, tight end Zach Ertz, and kicker Brandon McManus. Ari then writes, Washington is busy. I told you we were going to be busy. Told you it was going to be fast and furious. We were going to spend, and it wasn't going to be like crazy spending. We weren't going to spend frivolously, but we were going to be out here active. Continue to throw darts at the dartboard. Boop, 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 boop. Keep peppering the dartboard with darts. That's what we're doing. So let's see anything else happen. Damian Lewis gets the Panthers aren't playing. They're gonna give Bryce Young all he needs. So when you got a shorter quarterback, you have to make sure your guards are legit. From guard to guard is probably more important than the tackles, because you can step up if the pocket is intact, right? So they spent $100 million over 5 years on Robert Hunt. Now they turn around and add Damian Lewis on a 4-year, $53 million deal. So with just the two guards, they spent $150 million in aggregate. Again, they probably won't see all of that money clearly, but we're just talking about the totals of the deals. You spent $150 million on two players at the guard position. They are not bullshitting around. They are going to give Bryce Young every opportunity to succeed from an offensive line standpoint. They spent their first round pick 2 years ago on Ike Ekwonu. They now have added two guards on the interior. So now they've spent resources. I think they still got Taylor Moton out at right tackle. So he was playing well. He's probably their best offensive lineman. So now it's just center. And I think they just cut their center yesterday. So they're probably going to either draft one or add another one in free agency. But now it's about adding the weapons. But they're not bullshitting around. They're going to protect him. I love it. Love it, love it. I just hate that another option is off the board, but we weren't going to spend that kind of money. Clearly, you see what we just spent. Three years, $16 million. You see what we spent. We weren't going to spend 4 years, $53 million on him. Those guys are going to get paid, and I knew that. All right. Let's check out some of the other I think Ari's got it under control. Let me just check let me go check the site. And see if anything. So Jacoby Brissett's deal, 1 year, $8 million. Good for Cole, man. I'm excited for him. Going back home. Brandon Allen re-signs with the 49ers on a 1 year, $2 million deal at quarterback. See if anything changed. So we got the numbers on Singletary. 3 years, $16.5 million for Devin Singletary. So he'll probably be their starting running back. He doesn't scare me. He's a good back. But Saquon, every time he touched it, there was a threat he can go the distance. That ain't Devin Singletary. So unless they address that with somebody in the draft, if they're going to roll with Devin Singletary, he's cool, but he doesn't scare me, right? He's a good back, though. Don't get it wrong. Don't get it twisted, but he ain't scoring. We talked about Gus Edwards going to the Chargers, 2 years, $6.5 million deal. Let's see. Receiver market has been very quiet. Gabe Davis, 3 years, $39 million with the Jags. And I think the Jags signed somebody else too. Yeah, Devin Duvernay, 2 years, $12.5 million. But this has been relatively quiet. Tight end market is starting to heat up a little bit. A lot of guys are getting signed there. Michael Winnu, 3 years, $57 million. That's the only, big time tackle. Jermaine Illuminor signed a 2 year, $14 million deal. I would have loved to have gotten in on some of that because he's a swing tackle and you need those. And we don't have one currently under contract. So I would have loved to have gotten in. It's still guys in this mix that are swing tackles that you can get in on, but he probably was the best of the group. He's more of a right tackle though than he is a left tackle, but still this tackle market is still largely untouched. Tyron Smith, David Bakhtiari, Jonah Williams, Mekhi Becton, Trent Brown, Donovan Smith. There's some guys in here I want no parts of still, but George Fant is a veteran that I'm willing to take a swing on at 32 years old. That's a swing tackle. I wouldn't mind. Josh Nijman is still out there. That's the guy that I really want. It's Josh Nijman. That's the guy that I really want. And it's not going to cost you a whole hell of a lot. So it's still a lot of guys there available. Guards, boy, these guards are getting broken off. These guards are getting paid. Dotson got paid. Hunt, biggest deal so far in free agency. Christian Wilkins got $110 million. And then the Chiefs defensive tackle, Chris Jones got 100 and whatever. And then obviously Brian Burns got 150. So Hunt's deal is probably the biggest on the offensive side of football, I'll say. Jonah Jackson got the deal from the Rams. Damian Lewis got the deal with the Panthers. Runyon with the Giants. Allegretti signed with us. Graham Glasgow back with the Lions. That market, that shit has been run through. Back, forth, sideways, up, down, side to side. It's only a couple of dudes even left worth talking about. And then the rest of these dudes are, fill in the blanks, depth type guys. We already seen the center market is being devoured as well. These interior offensive linemen have been signing like hotcakes. Lloyd Cushenberry just got the most money guaranteed in NFL history for a center. 4 years, 50, and I think 36 of it is fully, it's guaranteed. So good for him. We got Biadasz. The Raiders re-signed Andre James. Mitch Morse is with the Jags. Aaron Brewer came from the Titans to the Dolphins, which is why the Titans had to go out and get Lloyd Cushenberry. So yeah, that center market is going pretty good. The Burns deal, 5 years, $141 million. We got the Huff deal, 3 years, 51 with the Eagles. Grenard, 76 over 4 with the Vikings. Za'Darius went back to the Browns. Leonard Floyd Gumby goes 2 years, $20 million with the 49ers. Davenport 1 year to the Lions. Danico Autry, that's a good deal. 2 years, $21 million with the Texans. Of course, we signed Dorance Armstrong 3 years, 33. AJ Epineza back with the Bills on a 2-year, 14. Yetur Gross-Matos, 2-year, $18 million deal with the Niners. Tyquan Lewis back on a 2-year, $14 million deal with the Colts. So, again, edge rusher. Teams be getting busy. You know that's what it is. But Chase Young, Josh Uche, Emmanuel Agba, Shaq Barrett, Carl Larson, Mike Dana, Derek Barnett, Yannick Ngakoue, those are some of the bigger names. Randy Gregory, that are still left amongst these edge rushers. A bunch of our guys are still in here. James Smith-Williams, Casey Toohill, F.A. Obata. Seeing a lot of the old gang still hanging around in there. Interior defensive linemen, they've probably been the richest of all of the positions. I guess the interior guys are eating well this year on the offensive and defensive lines. If these guys are getting paid, somebody's got to block them, right? Chris Jones, 5 years, 158. Justin Matabike, 4 years, 98. Christian Wilkins, 4 years, 110. Leonard Williams, 3 years, 64.5. Grover Stewart, 3 years, 39 to stay with the Colts. He's really good. Javon Kinlaw, I think we saw him go 1 year with the Jets. Foley Fatukasi, 1 year to go to the Texans. Maurice Hurst, 1 year to go back to the Browns, 1 year, $3.2 million. Belial Nickel stays or goes to the Cardinals, 3 years, 30. Justin Jones, 3 years, 30 in Arizona as well. So that market has been run up all through. Now, the linebacker is still largely intact. I don't know if y'all saw Azeez Al-Shire got a 3-year deal for $34 million. So I think Frankie Luvu kind of opened up that window, and now you're seeing other guys kind of go in there. Andrew Van Ginkel, 2 years, $36 million for the Vikings. Azeez Al-Shire, 3 years, 34. Jordan Hicks, 2 years, $8 million with the Texans because they lost your boy to the Vikings, as a matter of fact. Blake Cashman on a 3-year deal, $22.5 million. So, yeah, a lot of these backers are signing, but there's still a lot of guys left, right? Queen, Wagner, Levante David, even though I think he's going back to Tampa. Devin White, Jordan Brooks signed with the Dolphins. I know that. Kenneth Murray is still available. Willie Gay is still available. Jerome Baker is still available. So it's still some names. Isaiah Simmons, Josie Jewell. Still a lot of names left at that position. Same with cornerback. Chidobe Awuzie got the 3-year deal for $36 million with the Titans. Ronald Darby, 2 years, $10 million with the Jags. Boy, Ronald had a good run with us that 1 year, boy. He was really good for us. 3 years, $25 million, 25.5 for Sean Murphy Bunting to go to the Cardinals. That's pretty much it with the corners. So you still got Stephon Gilmore, Kendall Fuller, Xavier Howard, Kenny Moore, Tre'Davious White, Darius Williams, Adoree Jackson, Steven Nelson, Lakeela Witherspoon, Levi Wallace, Jeff Okuda, I think, signed a 1-year deal with the Houston Texans, if I'm not mistaken. Marcus Peters, Avante Maddox is a solid guy still available. Christian Fulton, CJ Henderson was a former first-round pick. Jordan Lewis, who I think is going to end up in Washington, unfortunately. Michael Davis is who I really want. He's still out there. Shaq Griffin, J.C. Jackson. So it's still a lot of names at the cornerback position still available. And in the safety position, as I mentioned, still largely untouched. McKinney got the big deal, 4 years, $68 million with the Packers. Cam Curl is still available. Justin Simmons is still available. Geno Stone signed a 2-year, $15 million deal with the Bengals. Eddie Jackson still available. Kevin Byard signed that same 2-year, $15 million deal with the Bears. CJ Gardner-Johnson, Julian Blackman, both still available. Darnell Savage signed a 3-year, $21 million deal. So his was less than the 2-year, 15 and the 2-year 15 that Geno Stone and Kevin Byard signed. And his is, only $7 million per. So Savage, I'm telling you, this market ain't gonna be as good. The Bills, Louie Gilman goes back to the Chargers on a 3-year, $10.62 million deal. So I think these numbers are going to come down. I think, or a Louie Gilman's deal might be 1 year, whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but he's back with the Chargers. So ain't no real money being tossed around at safety position, which is kind of what I thought. And we reached in and grabbed us a kicker. It ain't nothing here left. We had to do it. Nick Folk, Joey Sly, Greg Joseph, Mason Crosby, Cade York, and Randy Bullock are kickers that are left. So I remember on my podcast earlier today, I was like, hey, they got to do something. These kickers running out quick. Don't mess around this game of musical chairs with the kickers and mess around and don't get left without a chair, right? I'm glad they got something done. Shit. Don't leave us out here looking crazy. All right. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Ron would still be sitting on the toilet. Hey, look, man, we already beat Ron and company up enough. Ron's out doing his nice little cozy gig at the up in Bristol. Let him have his fun as a studio analyst now, man. Leave old Ronald alone. Mr. Ron B, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Lou, these free agent safeties may be out there for a while until a market is established. What says you? Facts. Again, nobody wants to take less than what they think they are worth. It's a tough, bitter pill to swallow. I remember this happening to Chauncey Gardner-Johnson last year. I remember it happening to Drew Tranquil last year, where you overrate your market. You think that, I'm going to go out here, I'm going to get, $8, $9, $10 million per year on a deal. And then everybody talking $5, $6 million. You're like, whoa, wait a minute. What y'all talking about? Y'all must have me mistaken with a different player. You know who I am? You know what I've done? And they're like, yeah, bro, it ain't personal. But yeah, this is what we think you worth. And they're like, nah, hell nah. We just gonna wait. And sometimes that ain't the best thing to do, In the case of that safety market, these agents, I hope they did their clients a service, because they would have done them a huge disservice if they're out here lying to them, telling them what they think they're market. I told anybody that would listen to this from the jump, it's only two dudes that's going to get broken off at the safety position: Justin Simmons and Xavier McKinney. And McKinney's already gotten broken off. And I still think somebody's going to pay Simmons a 2-year, $30 some odd million deal, and it'll be worth his while. Everybody else, we see the $7 million deals that's being handed out. We saw the deal that the ex-Green Bay Packers safety took, 3 years, $21 million. We saw the two safeties take the 2-year, $15 million deals, right? Geno Stone and Kevin Byard took the 2-year, $15 million. Like, that's the going rate right now. And if your name ain't Xavier McKinney or Justin Simmons, that's where you living at right now. And they're having a hard time coming to grips with that. So somebody's going to have to eventually say, all right, man, this is what it is. Or you can take a 1-year deal. If you're feeling froggy, leap. Bet on yourself. Take a 1-year deal. Ball out this year. Reset. Hit the market next year. But this is what it is. You can take it or you can leave it. But, Cam Curl, his dad, Greg, they were talking all kinds of big cash money. All kinds of big numbers in the offseason. And had the last group been here, Cam probably would have gotten it. They would have bid it against themselves probably. But with this new group here, they don't value Cam like that. And you looking at the rest of this market, nobody else is either around the league. So eventually these guys are going to realize what it is, and they'll get with the program and jump in here and get some of this bread while it's still there to be got. LT, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. LT writes, Kenny Moore, Smitty, AJ, Quan, Dallas, Hurts, not scary. K Moore. Who is K Moore? Because I know you're an Eagles fan, so you're talking about all of the Eagles. I don't know who K Moore is, but Smitty, AJ, Quan, Dallas, Goddard, Hurts, not scary. I mean, the offense been scary with the talent that was there, but it was all about play calling and execution and health towards the end of the season. A nice little combination of all those things. Adding Saquon was an upgrade, period. So we'll see what happens. King of the Bluegrass, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. I don't know what the laughing emoji is for, but I probably said something crazy. That's what I'm thinking. I don't know. I can't confirm or deny that, but you just laughing at me, so it's got me thinking I said something crazy. Probably. DJ 23, been a member for 13 months. Really appreciate you. Who writes, I would have liked to have gotten that Okuda deal cheap. I knew it was going to be there, but you was going to have to be quick because we're not the only ones eyeballing a young corner who's talented that was a former top 5 pick that wants to get a long-term deal but knows he's not in the market to do so, so he's going to sign a 1-year deal to prove it. You needed to be quick on that. And we had other interests, obviously. We were worried about locking up Dorance Armstrong and Tyler Biadasz and getting after Frankie Luvu. And so I'm not mad at it. It is what it is. You move on, right? Michael Mason II, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Lou, keep Sam, trade back, and build O-line and D. Nah, you got to come up off that, Mike. That's a dead. That horse has long been dead, bro. You got to come up off that. Just let it go. God, let it go. I did a long time ago. I realized I told Sam at the end of last season, bro, if you want to keep this job, if you want to prevent the next group from getting a quarterback, just win a game, bro. Just win a game. He couldn't do it. They had to take him out of games to get themselves chances to win games. See it happening. Kevin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Kevin, thank you for being a member of the MOBB who writes, Lou, I wasn't here earlier, but boy, I am happy. Wasn't expecting them to sign anyone, but this feels different. Youth movement on full go. Slide over pays? ? Kevin, I said this on the podcast. Packers fans are rejoicing everywhere because y'all don't spend money in free agency. Generally, if you spending money in free agency, it's to keep your own. You're not out here spending free agency dollars on guys on other teams. What is this? This has got to feel like Christmas if you're a Packers fan because you're like, bro, we don't do this. We don't engage in this type of behavior. This is brand new. So, yeah, this should feel good to you if you're a Packers fan. Xavier McKinney and Josh Jacobs and, all the moves that you've made to this point. These are not Packer-like moves normally, right? And I know I'm forgetting a guy or two that you've also signed. You've been very aggressive. You've got good football players, and you should feel damn good about what your team has done. And I don't think you've overpaid for any particular player to this point. I got to look at all the guys that you've signed. But the big names, McKinney was going to cost. You weren't getting out of that. He's 25 years old. He'll be 26 here, or I think he's 25, about to turn 26. He's young. You weren't getting out of that without paying. And he's versatile. You were moving on from Darnell Savage. You were going to replace him with Xavier McKinney, who's even more versatile than Darnell Savage. You were going to have to pay. As far as Josh Jacobs, $12 million is what I predicted he would get after seeing Saquon's deal. He wasn't going to eclipse Saquon's deal. And I said 12 million is about where I think he's going to end up. 4 years, $48 million sounds about right. So I don't think there was any overpays. I'd have to see any other guys that you signed because you were quite busy for the Packers now. But you should feel good. You should feel damn good about what you accomplished today. You know, moving on from Aaron Jones stinks, but you got younger at the position with Josh Jacobs. So you should feel good. Louie, hey, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, give me Justin Simmons or Snead tomorrow, Adam. Hashtag HTTC. I wouldn't hold my breath on either one of those dudes. You're more likely to get Justin Simmons than you are L'Jarius Snead. And Simmons, I think, is a long shot because, again, you're paying for a guy that you think can get you over the top, and that's not where we are in our progression. That's not where we are in our process. So I don't see Justin Simmons coming here, and I don't see us giving up draft capital to get L'Jarius Snead and then turning around and paying him. I don't see that happening either. Oh, okay. King of the Bluegrass, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. I got you now. He says, my QB1 reaction from you, priceless. Okay. When you told me that Jaden Daniels was your QB1, I was like, whoa, okay. Yeah, okay. I got you. Now I know what you was laughing. I was like, I don't know what it is, but yeah. I knew you were laughing at me for a reason. I couldn't tell you exactly why. But anyway, I digress. Day number 1 for the Commanders, pretty much in the books. The clock is about to turn to midnight and into the next day. But I would say tampering day number 1 was one full of aggressiveness, one full of purpose. And I'd say it was a success. Coming into this first day, I didn't know what to expect, but this is what I did expect, and I told you as much yesterday. Fast and furious. Expect Washington to be aggressive. I don't know if any other teams signed more players than we did today. And keep in mind, not including re-signing your own guys. We didn't re-sign anybody. So take away players that you're bringing back. I don't think anybody went outside their organization and brought in new players more so than we did in day 1 of the tampering period. We signed 6 new players. 7, again, if you count Zach Ertz. But we signed 6 guys today. If that's not busy on day 1, I don't know what to tell you. I'd like to think that that's the most players being signed in day 1 of the tampering period. So, and we're not done. Far from it. I expect more activity tomorrow. Tomorrow's a new day. And I wouldn't be shocked if we woke up and they signed somebody else, or, early wee hours of the morning, they sign somebody, or we get to tomorrow at noon and boom, they got somebody locked in at safety or corner or tackle. We're going to start to see those markets, come together here shortly. I think the next market that starts to come to the forefront is going to be the offensive tackle market. There's not a lot of them. All it takes is for one team to reach in there and grab one. Michael Winnu going back to New England is a bit of a starter there, but I still think there, other guys that are interesting there that may have more to say about that market. Mekhi Becton is still interesting. Tyron Smith, I think, is going to end up going to a contender. So we're going to see. But I think that market gets busy tomorrow. I wouldn't be shocked if we see some more safeties come to grips with what it is and start to sign on the dotted line there or agree to terms. Corner, I think you're going to see that market kind of be slow developing. I think that's the one that isn't going to move as rapidly because a lot of those guys are older. You can wait. They're not going anywhere. I think you're going to see that market kind of sit there and kind of be stale a bit. But safety and tackle, I think you're going to start to see some players make decisions as early as tomorrow. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the command post. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. A hell of a day one for Adam Peters, Lance Newmark, Dan Quinn, and company. I'm dying to see what day two looks like. If this is any indication of what Washington's activity level is going to be, we're in for a hell of a free agency period, to say the least. I'm not surprised. I warned you it would be this way, but it's good to see confirmation of what I thought was coming come to fruition. So, it's good. And I'm hoping that they pick up one or two more guys that I was high on, like Michael Davis. I'd love to see him end up in burgundy and gold, especially with the ties that he has to our new defensive backs coach, Tommy Donatel. I'd love to see them do something at tackle, and we'll see, what they do at safety. Jeremy Chin is the guy that I want next. I want to go back to the Panthers store. There's still another item there that I think we can throw in the cart. So anyway, that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. Until next time, you guys, take care. You'll see me tomorrow. We're not done. And we'll be back again. Probably have a podcast episode tomorrow. Probably we will be back again talking Commanders activity tomorrow night, more likely than not. So with that said, you guys enjoy the rest of your evening, and we will reconvene tomorrow. Feels good to see the burgundy and gold operating like a real NFL outfit. They're recalibrating as we speak. I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.